Welcome back, everybody, to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys to preview Week 6 in the NFL. We only got 2 teams on bye this week. It's the Vikings, the Texans, right? It's Vikings and the Texans. I think those are the 2 teams. I don't remember writing a Texans preview, so either they're on the bye or we're going to go right off the top of my head when we get to that game. But it seems like you're nodding that they are the bye. But Dalton, I'm excited to get to this week's picks with you, mainly because I would like to not think about last week's picks, because that was the worst week of the season for you and I. We're still well up over 500 on the season, but buddy, you went 5-9 last week and I went 6-8. Not ideal.
Not ideal.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. We had some games that, especially ones that came down to the wire, we saw some crazy comebacks in that really messed that up. And the one advantage that you had, I'll give you a good call on this one, the Saints beating the Giants. You had the Saints, I had the Giants in that game, so that made the difference between us. But it certainly was a rough and unpredictable week last week. We'll look to get back on track here.
You got to stay ahead of the curve, baby. The week before, I took the Giants, right? I was like, okay, this is the one that the Giants win. And then the Giants were playing the Saints. And I was like, no, hold on. This is the one that the Saints win. You got to stay ahead of the curve, my friend. That's what we got to be doing here on this show to make sure that we get back in the right direction. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat here to kick off the show here for this preview show this week. Dalton and I are going to go through every single game, including Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football. So we're going to give you every single preview for every single game. We're going to talk about both sides of the ball a little bit, give you the data points, the PFF stats that we think are going to matter most towards who we think is going to win this game. Of course, we're going to give you our score prediction as well. If you guys want to follow along for yourself and you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you get one right now. 25% off. PFF NFL Show 25. Subscribe.pff.com is how you can get that. And obviously you can look up all the numbers that we talk about here on the show, or you can do your own independent research every single week. And you can say, hold on, I think, all right, Trevor talked about, like the Falcons run defense here, but actually I wonder what the Falcons coverage is in this game. I think it's going to matter a little bit more. You can find out all those numbers for yourself if you have that PFF Plus subscription. So make sure that you guys are going to get that if you don't have that yet. We also, of course, have our resident all-pro, Terron Armstead, getting in on the show. We're going to get him in the show very quickly here because he wanted to talk about Thursday Night Football, Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. And Dalton, that is where we start our discussion here. Another really nice Thursday Night Football matchup here, another divisional matchup here. For the Giants, you had the thrilling victory in Week 4. You had the surprising defeat in Week 5, and now you're hosting your rival and the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll start with this one because I kind of want to talk about Jackson Dart. We had, the Jackson Dart winning the game in Week 4, obviously losing the game in Week 5. But to be honest with you, buddy, they weren't that different. I mean, his PFF passing grade was around 55. It was between 55 and 60 in both of those weeks. So it's not like Jackson Dart really lit the world on fire. I think he was a little bit better as a rusher in Week 4. And honestly, I just think that he kind of caught him off guard in Week 4 with what Jackson Dart was even going to be for that team. That's how they end up getting the victory there. What I'm looking to see this week, because I want to focus on that side of the ball for the Giants. The offensive line's obviously got to play well for them. The Eagles like to throw a lot of different stuff at you. So Andrew Thomas played really well last week. He's got to play really well again this week. Cam Scatterbo, you need to get something out of him a little bit more than what you got last week. We focused on the wide receivers when we went through the review show and how poor the wide receivers played for this team, which they need to play better overall. But I want to look at specifically Jackson Dart in this game over the middle of the field. When you look at the last 2 weeks, he had 3 attempts over the intermediate middle of the field in Week 4, 57.2 passing grade. Only 2 attempts in that area last week, 55.5 passing grade. To me, that sort of holds the key for him. Can you be somebody who can attack down the middle of the field? And it's going to be difficult to do so against this Eagles safety duo and, of course, Zach Bond as well. But that's really the next progression for him. And to be honest with you, I always sort of think that's the next progression when it comes to those college quarterbacks making their jump to the NFL. A lot of college quarterbacks, they just attack outside the numbers. That's sort of like how they're able to push the ball deep down the field. That's what their offense coordinator wants to do with them. And that was a lot of what Jackson Dart did when he was at Ole Miss. Can he be more of a middle of the field passer? I want to see that from him. But then, of course, you've got the running aspect of it as well. The Giants defense specifically, I do want to talk about them a little bit. Their run defense grade as a team is 22nd in the NFL at a 62.2. Their EPA per rush allowed, though, dead last. And Dalton, I don't think that's good for this week specifically, because in all this talk of, oh, the Eagles don't have an identity. You talked about it on Monday, them having the highest run rate of any team in the NFL last year and them kind of getting away from that this year. They don't really have that same sort of success, but a lot of the same bodies are still there. Dude, I think they're going to lean into Saquon Barkley heavily in this game. I don't think they're not going to overthink it at all. I think that certainly they're going to run the ball until the Giants show them that they can stop it. And so those two things are really what I'm looking for in this game. Can the Giants defend the run a little bit better than maybe what they have so far this season? And then on the other side of things, can Jackson Dart attack that middle of the field against a stout Eagles defense when it comes to defending the middle of the field?
Yeah, I think when you look at the effectiveness of the Eagles' run game, the biggest problem so far has been some inconsistency on the interior of their offensive line. And obviously that's never easy when you have to block Dexter Lawrence. And I think that matchup between the Eagles' offensive line and the Giants' defensive line really defines a lot of this game. If the Eagles win this matchup, they can run away with this game pretty handily. But the Giants' defensive line, it's one of the most talented in the NFL, and it can keep them in any ball game they're playing. And so Lawrence on the inside, especially in the run game, is huge. And then I think we have to look at just the superstar matchup that we have between the Eagles offensive tackles Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson against the Giants edge defender trio Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau, right? You look at these matchups with these players, and Carter is an interesting one also because we know he can move around and play between the tackles and stand up and rush from wherever he wants, but he's off to an outstanding start as a pass rusher, 82.4 pass rush grade. Brian Burns, his usual excellent self, 79.5. Kayvon Thibodeau, 65.3. That's solid. The Giants are one of just two teams so far this year to have three different players with at least 18 pressures. The other one's the Denver Broncos. So when you look at the heat that this team applies off the edge as pass rushers, you really know that Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson are going to be, they're usually up to the task, but they're going to have to be in this game. Otherwise, Jalen Hurts under pressure has not been great this year. He wasn't great last year. He actually had the lowest passing grade in the NFL under pressure last year. So I think when you look at the pass rush matchup off the edge with that group of guys you saw right there against the Eagles tackles, and like you mentioned before with the run game, I'm really looking at Dexter Lawrence on the inside against Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson and Tyler Steen. Those guys, the Eagles have not been able to run between the tackles quite as effectively this year. So that really is, I think, a matchup that's going to define this game, the Eagles offensive line against that Giants talented defensive line.
Okay, we're going to give our score prediction in a second. I see some people in the chat already talking about who they think is going to win this game, but we got to hear from Terron Armstead first. This was the trench matchup that he wanted to highlight this week. So let's hear from Terron, and then we'll give you guys our predictions of who we think is going to win the game. So let's check it out. Here we go, back with our guy, Terron Armstead. Preview another trench matchup here that we have for the week. It's Thursday Night Football. We're kicking it off with Terron as we're kicking off this week in the NFL. Giants, Eagles. And as if this wasn't a heated enough rivalry just because of everything that we've got in the divisions, a young rookie quarterback coming up for the Giants. Obviously the Eagles, they've had success, but hasn't quite looked like it was last year. Man, in the trenches specifically, the Giants defensive line against the Eagles offensive line. Terron, this is going to be one of the best trench matchups of the week, and we get it on Thursday Night Football. So actually my first question to you is, well, how about Thursday Night Football? Like, talk to me about the short week, especially somebody who, you've been on the show the last couple of weeks talking a lot about preparation, getting into the film room, understanding your opponents. When you have a condensed week, how does that change things for you in your preparation?
It definitely adds more layers and different dynamics, especially for a team like Philly, who I don't think they've played a noon game, a 1:00 game yet this season. It's been Thursday, Monday, Sunday. Defending champs, so primetime TV. Thursdays are challenging, especially like you got to consider if you were the traveling team the week before. So if Philly played against the Chargers in LA and had to fly to Philly, get back Monday, can't do anything, trying to recover from the game and the flight. And then if you got to be the traveling team going to New York, you got to leave Wednesday. So you got one day in Philly where you can do anything football related. So It condenses everything. And the thing about it for the coaches, they want to condense the game plan too. So if your normal playbook for the week is 200 pages, it's going to be down to about 50 pages. You guys are going to have your bread and butter plays that you're going to stick to, a few third downs and adjustments to what kind of blitz they have for the week. But the playbook is condensed on all sides of the ball from both teams.
So when you're talking about condensing the playbook a little bit there, I want to ask a follow-up. Like, when you do condense the playbook, would you say that the plays and the scheme and that game plan is more about just, hey, this is what we do really well as a team. Like, we're gonna run these plays that we know we do really well, versus the percentage that it might be like, hey, this is our opponent. This is sort of like what they might struggle with. These are the things that we want to implement for this team specifically. Do you think that it's more one or the other? Do you think it's, dead even, or when you say condense in the playbook, which side of things do you think the coaches leaned on a little bit more?
Definitely your bread and butter. So if you're outside zone team, you're going to be heavy outside zone based. You might have a couple counter plays, maybe a trick run play, but for the most part, you're going to keep everything sweet, short and sweet. You want to focus on execution on a short week, because you don't have all the reps to go through and get the timing of everything, to get the feel for everything, and see how it'll work out in the game. So you're going to go to what you're sure of. That's install 1, install 2, the plays that you put in first. Sean Payton would always say on those Thursdays, it was about a fast start. And the team that doesn't turn the ball over on a Thursday wins the game. So it's already like condensed playbook, limited amount of possessions, limited amount of like flair and explosive plays designed. So if you lose a possession, if one team has 12 possessions, you have 10 possessions, you'll lose the game. So it was always about like the execution and keeping it simple on those Thursdays.
All right, let's talk about that execution in the trenches. Andrew Thomas, when he's healthy, he's one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL for the New York Giants, and he is fantastic. He's going up against a Philadelphia defensive line that is going to be pretty ferocious against him, and it feels like they've definitely got to step up in a lot of ways. But I do want to mainly talk about the Giants on the defensive side of the ball. So you've got Brian Burns, you've got Kayvon Thibodeau, you've got Abdul Carter, you even got Dexter Lawrence, who can line up, it feels like, anywhere at that size, which is crazy to think that he's able to do that, going up against a Philadelphia offensive line that, is one of the best in the NFL, simply put. So when you talk about these offensive tackles, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, these guys, they can go up, it feels like they can go up against any of them, and they're really good pass rushers. So again, we've talked a lot about game planning throughout your time when you have been on the show. How do you game plan against a team that has 4 players, the top caliber, that you could go up against at any time? Which one of these guys would you maybe start your week with to say, okay, I got a plan for this guy first, and then we'll sort of talk about what this guy's able to do? How would you even approach, if you're the Eagles offensive lineman, handling a diverse defensive front like the one that New York has?
Yeah, no, it definitely presents a lot of challenges. Not many teams have a stable of guys that can really get active like that, and that can win one-on-ones consistently. For the Giants specifically, I would start with Brian Burns. I'm starting with Burns. He's playing at a really high level. He's productive every week. He's finding ways to get after the passer, get his hands on the football too. So he's creating turnovers and all those things. So I'm starting with Brian Burns. Then I'll transition to the other 2 rushers, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. I'll spend a lot of time on them too. Same process, don't get me wrong. The same amount of time, same due diligence, but I am going to start with Brian Burns first. And also I'm gonna look at Dexter Lawrence. I want to get a read on him as well, because a lot of what they do in pass rush is based around Dexter Lawrence, and he's generating the double team. So if the double team is coming to him, then they want to line guys in certain spots in order to have rush lanes and rush lane integrity. If Dexter Lawrence is getting one-on-ones, then that creates another challenge now interior. So we gotta figure out exactly where Dexter will be, who he's trying to occupy. Is he lining up over the center, trying to take the center in the guard, or is he getting out wide and wanting to try to create a one-on-one for himself? So it's a lot. It's a week that you're gonna log more hours than normal on that iPad.
What makes Lane Johnson as good as he is? This is somebody who has played at right tackle, and I know some people in that. Well, it feels like not anymore, thankfully, but it felt like for a long time it was like, all right, Hall of Fame case, like yeah, but he was a right tackle, and obviously I think that we're sort of past that at this point, especially when you talk about the longevity and the greatness of Lane Johnson. But like truly, what is it about him that makes him so fantastic just year in and year out? I mean, when he was younger and he was a little bit more athletic, obviously that was something he leaned on. But now, man, it's like he's winning with so much wisdom in his older age as the years are going on for him in the trenches. So just, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what do you appreciate about Lane Johnson? What makes him so great as a right tackle for the Eagles?
Lane's a perfectionist, Trevor. He's somebody that takes his craft very seriously. He's working on himself, on his game around the clock. Years ago, me and Lane came into the league together. Years ago, we were training in Dallas. Lane was staying with me. We were staying here in a house in Dallas, and it's like we will be sitting down watching TV, and he'll just hop up and just start doing squats or just start stretching and sitting in his. I'm like, Lane, sit down, bro. Just chill. He's just always like, seriously, he is like obsessed with his process and finding ways to just make himself better. So him being a perfectionist and really locking in, honing in on his technique, we both came in as really athletic guys. And as the years go on, you have to learn more tools and add more to your technique. He has done that. And he's also still very, very strong. So Lane put those long arms on people. His anchor is incredible. Still 13 years in. He's a Hall of Fame player.
No doubt. No doubt about it. Too many people questioned it because he played right tackle instead of left tackle, but we know how good the guy is. And the Eagles' offensive line in general, we know how good the Giants' defensive line could be in this game. It's going to be a fun one. Thursday Night Football, like you said, it's everybody's best versus everybody's best. It's what your bread and butter is, it's what your strength is. We're going to have fun watching on Thursday. I know you are too. Terron, I appreciate it, my friend.
Sure. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, does the wisdom of Terron Armstead sway at all? Dalton, who are you going with in this game?
Look, I think it is a great matchup there off the edge. Again, it's going to be a battle, won or lost in the trenches on that side of the ball, I think. But I think the fact, too, that the Giants are so one-dimensional on offense right now, they're getting Tyrone Tracy back in the backfield this week along with Cam Scatteraboo back there, and Jackson Dart's obviously been really good with his legs. The Giants are going to have to win this game running the football, but they also lost Darius Slayton for this week, due to a hamstring injury. So I think the Giants are just so one-dimensional, and it's hard to beat a team like this. If you are one-dimensional, I've got the Eagles 24-13.
I have it similar. I think the Eagles are winning this game. It would be a pretty big feat for the Giants to take down the Eagles in this one, even with the Giants being at home. I think Philly is going to bounce back, and I think that they're going to look pretty ferocious in this one. I've got the Philadelphia Eagles winning 28-14. I think it's a 2-score win for Philadelphia here. Moving on to the next game, let's go to Sunday morning. Got another international game in London. This time it's the Denver Broncos taking on your New York Jets. Maybe a little bit better cross international borders, It wasn't working so good, within state lines. Maybe international gaming is exactly what the Jets need. Tell us, Dalton, what do you think happens?
I think, look, the lesson here with the Jets, more than any scheme, and we've talked about their offensive line talent and different struggles and things like that. The Jets are 0-5, but there is one team they have beaten repeatedly, Trevor, and that is themselves, okay? So, I mean, when you look at just the self-inflicted wounds, I'm not even going to go on either side of the ball because it's just all team-wide, offense, defense, special teams. Here's a list of things I'm going to throw at you that the Jets have done so far this year. They've committed the 4th most penalties, all right? They've missed the 5th most tackles. They have blown the 3rd most coverages because we keep track of busted coverages around here, and they have lost the most fumbles. When you commit penalties and miss tackles and blow coverages and lose fumbles, you're going to lose ball games. So until the Jets stop beating themselves, they won't have a chance to win any of these ball games that they're in, especially the ones against good teams like Denver, right? So that's step number 1, because there have been times where, okay, they've run the football well, and then they fumble it. There have been times when Justin Fields has thrown the ball reasonably well, like week 1, and then, fumble on a kick return, and then committing penalties, and then missing tackles on defense and blowing coverages that they're not good in coverage right now, the 2nd worst coverage grade in the NFL. these are the types of things that when you talk about a team beating themselves, and they don't have the error to make they don't have the margin of error to make too many of these mistakes because they are a bottom 5 or 6 talent level team in the NFL anyway. But when you do this to yourself repeatedly week in and week out, you don't give yourself a chance to win, and that's how some of these games are over, like their last 2 games by just about halftime.
Yeah, I think that the point that you make there is a really good one. It's not that teams don't make these mistakes. One, it's the fact that the Jets are making all of them at a really high clip, but also it's just the fact that they don't really have the margin for error. If you get behind on the possession number or the missed tackles or the busted coverage, like they just don't have a lot to make up for it right now. They're just not a very explosive team, especially through the passing game, right? I mean, I think that's how you make up for a lot of this is when you are really good at the passing game, and the Jets just straight up are not right now. Something Terron said really made me think about Sean Payton and the Broncos specifically. And it's not a short week, but it is a different type of week. And I think that he's going to have some of those Thursday night principles that Terron was talking about in wanting to start fast. And that's something that the Denver Broncos have not really been able to do at a super high level so far 5 weeks into the season. They're 22nd in the NFL in total average points, I should say, in the first quarter. So 4 is that number there, and that's 22nd in the NFL. They're 21st in offensive grade in the first quarter, and then they're 31st in EPA per play in the first quarter. This is a game where not only do I think Sean Payton really wants to start fast anyways, Dalton, just because it goes a little bit with what you were just talking about there, if you get up on the Jets early, you force them to play a type of game they don't want to play. And I think that is going to tell the tale of how close this game is in the end. Ultimately, I do think the Broncos win this game. I have them winning 24-13. But I think the margin for how much they win this game by depends on how fast they can start. And if they can start as fast as they have so far this season, we might see this team win by 15 plus points. But if not, maybe it's something closer to maybe it's a 10-point win, maybe it's a 1-score win, whatever it is. I just think that how the Broncos start out of the gate is going to tell the tale of really how this entire game goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sean Payton's going to have a good game plan because, again, the Jets have been so bad in coverage, just busting coverages and leaving guys wide open that it's been a big problem. I think Sean Payton is going to create lanes in the run game, even without his left guard, Ben Powers, who's going to be out for a while. This offensive line is really, really good. I think as long as they can get up on that second level and get up on Jamie and Sherwood and these linebackers that are dealing with not having Quincy Williams, I think they're going to be fine in the run game. I've got the Broncos pretty big in this one, 28-10. There's just not a ton with the Jets until they stop making those unforced errors and then start executing at the level that they did, say, in week 1, at least offensively against Pittsburgh. They just don't instill a ton of confidence right now. I've got Denver big in this game. I think they take care of business.
And Bo Nix actually has been pretty good in the first quarters. Now, he hasn't been super explosive, but 71.7 passing grade in the first quarters 5 weeks through the season. That's top half of the league. So he's been fine. He's been average, if not a little bit better to start these games. It just hasn't been super explosive. His average depth of target, I can't remember where it ranks amongst quarterbacks in the first quarter, but it's much lower. It was something around like 5.5, 6 yards down the field as an average depth of target. So they just haven't really pushed the ball a lot in the first quarter. And I wonder if we see them be more aggressive to see if they can connect on a couple of those deep shots to get up on the scoreboard a little bit and force the Jets to play a type of ball that they're very uncomfortable with. The Arizona Cardinals, coming off a really tough loss against the Tennessee Titans, traveling to Indianapolis, which is never a good place to play that we have seen so far in 2025, just because Indianapolis might be the most consistent team in the NFL so far 5 weeks through the season. What do you think happens in this one? Which side of the ball you want to start with?
I really like the opportunity, once again, the Colts have to score points in this game because I think the Cardinals defense sets up so well for Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones to do what they want. The Cardinals defense, first of all, they got a lot of injuries at corner, but Will Johnson especially is playing well on the outside. They've got a good set of safeties, but the big thing that they do in the secondary, they sit back and prevent you from taking deep shots down the field. They want to sit back and make tackles underneath, right? So the Cardinals play the highest percentage of quarters, cover 4, in the NFL. You can see that through the schemes. You can see that through the mentality of their play in coverage. They just want to keep things in front of them, right? But bringing in Daniel Jones, bringing him into Indianapolis, that was the entire idea, is that we can complete these underneath passes now to all these weapons and work after the catch and just continue to work our way down for first downs. You look at Daniel Jones throwing under 20 yards so far. I think this is the exact reason that they made him the starting quarterback, because he makes the easy throws, right? 83.2 passing grade on throws under 20 yards in the air, 5th in the NFL, 6th in yards per attempt. He completes them, or at adjusted completion rate at 84%, the 8th lowest uncatchable pass rate. Within a certain box, within that 20-yard box, Daniel Jones is going to be really, really accurate. And I think that's exactly what you have to do against this Cardinals defense that wants you to play within that box, and they just don't want to give up home runs, right? I think that's just the idea of Jonathan Gannon's defense and playing so much quarters in this secondary, is we're going to prevent those deep shots. Well, the Colts don't take them anyway. I think this game really does set up very well for Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen and even Jonathan Taylor in the run game to do pretty much nothing out of the ordinary for what they've been doing the first 5 weeks of the season already.
Kyler Murray on the injury report in the early part of the week due to a foot injury. Says status unknown, but he's not practicing this week. So obviously, if Kyler's out of this game, it completely changes things. But specifically on Arizona's side of things, running the ball on third down has been a big issue for this team specifically. They have a 59.1 rushing grade on third downs, which is 28th in the NFL. And when I went back to that Titans game and I wanted to look things up to see, like, man, how are they not able to close this out? I understand they don't have James Conner, they don't have Trey Benson. You're down your top 2 backs. It's going to be tough anyways, but still, there were moments where I felt like they really could have put that game away. I've talked about how I think their offensive line is fine in pass protection. I don't really know if they have those people movers, those impact blockers in the run game, and I feel like that has shown up a couple of times throughout this season already. So in the run game, I think that they just have to be better overall, specifically when it comes to running the ball on third down. And I went back and I looked at sort of the play sheet of the third and fourth quarter of that game, really after they got up 21-6. Okay, what were the series like? And it was a lot. It was 3 and out, 6-play drive. Like it really was not sustained drives. It was not a good performance at all from the offense down the stretch. Drew Petzing, their offensive coordinator, has talked about, hey, like I didn't call. I'm not quoting him verbatim here, but it was basically like, hey, I could have called a better game there. I could have done better for us. And I think everybody knows that after you lose a game the way that they did to the Titans. But when I'm watching these plays, or I'm looking at the results, it was like, okay, run for not a lot of yards, passing the ball, okay, then they had a penalty, okay, passing another penalty. And so it felt like whenever they were dropping back to pass, they had a lot of penalty issues. And then Petzing was like, okay, well, I'm going to lean on the run game a little bit more, so we're not, shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit here. But then they couldn't convert on the ground. So that to me is a major issue of this team now with James Conner out for the season and Trey Benson on short-term IR, is they still have to figure this part out, because I already felt like the Arizona Cardinals were too boom or bust with those top 2 running backs in the lineup. When we talked about this Arizona Cardinals team, remember last year we said they are at their best when they're running the football. We all like to talk about Kyler Murray and the potency of the passing game and everything like that, but this is going to be a theme that you're going to hear from me throughout this entire episode, because I just kept going back to how do teams defend the run and how do they run the football. And 5 weeks into the season, the teams that know how to run the football and defend the run are the ones who are truly getting ahead early here in 2025. And I don't think the Cardinals can do that. The Cardinals don't have a great rushing attack, and I think that's a major point of contention with their offense being as inconsistent as it is. Do they have the ability to rush on third down, especially on the third down opportunities where it's 3rd and 4 or less? Do you have the ability to pick up those first downs? Do you have the backs in the backfield, and do you have the offensive line that knows how to get it done? That is the thing that I'm looking forward to the most in this game as a bounce back area for the Arizona Cardinals. But ultimately, I do think that they lose this one because it's hard for me to pick against Indianapolis. I'm going to say 28-23. I think the Cardinals bounce back a little bit on the offensive side of the football, so I'll give them something around 20, low 20s, something like that. But I got yelled at for saying that the Colts were going to give up too many points against the Raiders last week, and so I'm not going to quite go that high this week. But I do think the Cardinals give it a much better effort than what we saw the week before. Ultimately, though, I do think the Colts win. I'll go 28-23 here in this one.
I like the Colts as well, actually, even more than you do. If we were doing some sort of confidence scale for these picks, this one would be pretty high on the list for me because the Colts offense has been defined by their consistency, like you mentioned this season. The Cardinals offense, to me, has been defined by their inconsistency and just going long droughts in games without any points. And you mentioned the run game. That's what you get from a team that's 26th in run blocking grade right now. They are not making it happen, even in those short yardage situations. So, and also just the entire feel of, look, the Colts are rolling. Last week was business as usual for them, beating the Raiders 40-6. Mentally getting over what just happened for Arizona against the Titans at home, and now having to go on the road against a really good team, and especially now if Kyler Murray's either out or compromised, if it's Jacoby Brissett in there. I mean, I just think there's a lot of problems for the Cardinals right now, and their offense, I do not trust it to be consistent for 60 minutes like I do with the Colts. I have the Colts 28-17.
The Los Angeles Chargers traveling to the Miami Dolphins. I don't know how many games Mike McDaniel has left. And they lose this game to the Chargers. That might be it. It might be. Not that the Chargers are a bad team. Not trying to say that the Chargers are a bad team, but there's only just so many losses that you can handle, especially for a couple of games that you felt like the Dolphins absolutely could have won, and they did not. You know, if they now drop a game to the Chargers traveling across the country at home in Miami, the clock might be striking midnight for the Mike McDaniel era in Miami. Where do you want to start with this? You want to talk about the Chargers or Miami?
I'm going to go with the Chargers offense because I think the biggest concern for me on this entire team right now is the offensive line injuries, right? Obviously, Rashawn Slater out for the year. Joe Alt, I'm not sure if he's going to play in this game, but I know he's got the high ankle sprain.
Are they thinking he might play? I felt like he was going to be out at least another week.
Well, I know probably. I know they never put him on IR, so it's not the full 4-week minimum, but not sure yet. I would assume he's not, but either way, they've had issues in pass protection the last couple weeks. You take a look at their last 3 weeks in pass protection since these injuries have really started to rack up. They have the third worst pass blocking grade in the NFL over the last 3 weeks. Justin Herbert has been hit and sacked more than anybody else in the league over the past 3 weeks. It is not, if you're sitting here thinking, oh, it's Justin Herbert's fault that they've lost a couple of games, it is not. He's their best player, and he's still been playing great football when he's protected, right? So I think what you have here is something's got to give. Either the Chargers are going to pass protect better this week, or this Dolphins defensive line, which it is one of the most baffling things in the NFL to me this year. With as much talent as the Dolphins have on their defensive line, I would argue it's the most talented unit on their entire team, and they are dead last in every category of grading on the defensive line. Pressure rates, run defense grades. Kenneth Grant, the rookie, is struggling, the first-round pick. Everything about this Dolphins defensive line has been a struggle this year for seemingly no reason. If they struggle in this matchup against a Chargers line playing with a lot of second stringers and possibly at both tackle spots, then I just don't know what to say about them at that point. Either the Dolphins are going to get a pass rush this week against a very injured unit, or they're not, and Justin Herbert's going to tear them apart.
I think the telltale sign of this game is, are the Chargers going to be able to run the football? Because right now, I talked about it in the review show on Monday. We can't really have a discussion about anything else that's going on with the Miami Dolphins until everything that revolves around the run game gets fixed. They are dead last in the NFL in total rushing yards that they have gained on offense, and they're dead last in the NFL at rushing yards allowed per game on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to lose a lot of football games anytime that is the case. And that's why they are 1-4. Walt's in the chat and he's like, hey, Trevor, why aren't you talking about the Chargers potentially losing this game? And the Chargers are not in a great spot over the last 2 weeks. But I do think that the reason why they've not been in a great spot and they've dropped a couple of games is because, one, the injuries, which you talked about there, Dalton, and two, penalties. And the penalties are an uncharacteristic part of a Jim Harbaugh coach team. I think I mentioned this on the Monday show that in the first 21 games of Jim Harbaugh's tenure with the Chargers, his team recorded 8 penalties or more in a single game, I believe just one time. And they've done that twice over back-to-back weeks. I think that regresses to the mean, and we get a much more disciplined performance from the Chargers against the Miami Dolphins this week. And so if I think the penalties are naturally going to diminish from what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, then really it's just mitigating the injuries that's the big issue, which you talked about the offensive line. Now Omarion Hampton is out. What does the running game look like for the Chargers? Because as good as Justin Herbert has played, this offense has been very balanced. If they can run the football against a team that has not been able to stop the run at all whatsoever, then I still like the Chargers pretty comfortably in this game. But if all of a sudden the Dolphins go, hey, backs against the wall, seasons against the wall, everything, and they take advantage of a running back room that is pretty depleted right now for the Chargers and an offensive line that's reeling as well, then all of a sudden I think that, Walt, you could be right. This game could be a lot closer than some people might think. Ultimately, I have more faith in the Chargers. I have more faith in their roster. I have more faith in their coaching staff right now. And I straight up have more faith in their quarterback. 24-17 is the score that I have here with the Chargers winning this game. What do you think, Dalton?
No, I like the Chargers as well. I think their defense is the one constant on this team, especially on the back end. Although I'm curious to get your thoughts in a second here on some changes that there was the Joe Flacco trade was the big news yesterday, but there was also another trade between the Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens. The Chargers getting edge rusher Odafe Owe and sending out Alohi Gilman, the safety, to Baltimore. There was a pick swap in there also. I've got the Chargers 21-16. I find that storyline interesting as well, with the Chargers desperately needing some more pass rush help with Khalil Mack out and dipping into their safety depth to go and do it.
Miami's offensive line, too. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the run game for them. 4 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen have a run blocking grade below 44.
Not great.
Not great indeed. That's how you're dead last in the league in total rushing yards gained through 5 weeks of the season. That's how you get to that point. So I just don't have a lot of faith in where the Dolphins offense is. I don't think there's a lot of balance there. Tyreek Hill was basically the only explosive and reliable option that they had. Now he's not in there anymore. Even when they targeted Jalen Waddle, the EPA per pass numbers were much lower than you thought that they were going to be. And so, they had a chance to win that game against Carolina last week, but, it's just, that's what it is. If you cannot defend the run with not being a bottom of the barrel team in the NFL, you're just not going to win. I'm trying to think of more ways to say it like that, because I'm trying to not just oversimplify it. But the fact of the matter is, if you cannot stop the run and you cannot run the football, you're not going to win this league. That's why they're 1-4.
No, there's
that's the way that it is.
There's a list of teams, probably 6 or 8 of them, where you can just look at them and go, they're bad in the trenches, and that's why they're bad. And the Dolphins are on that list.
Patriots and the Saints. This game once again in New Orleans. New Orleans had a little bit of magic last week against the New York Giants, getting their first win of the season. Patriots coming off a thrilling win in Buffalo against Josh Allen and the Bills. Drake May's arrival game, perhaps? What do we think about this one, Dalton?
So I think we'll be curious to see how the Patriots respond to going on the road again after getting such a big win on Sunday night over Buffalo. But you can't see this and have a letdown game here against the Saints, because especially their defense has not been playing that bad. But the focus obviously has to be on Drake May, right? And how much better he's looked this season, the work that Josh McDaniels has done with him on that side of the ball. And just in general, the big moment and the couple of improvised plays are going to get the big story, right? There was the big throw to Diggs rolling to his right, and then when he has to stiff arm 320-pound Daquan Jones and just find a way to get the football out and put that last drive together, it's a big moment for him, but I think it's representative of how much better he's played in the first 5 weeks of this season. And one thing that jumps out as me is his control and his accuracy of the outer parts of the field. So often with other quarterbacks, we talk about the middle of the field and dominating there. Drake May is dominating outside the numbers right now. Trevor, when he's throwing outside the numbers, he's the second highest graded quarterback in football, only behind Jordan Love. He's been outstanding out there, almost 10 yards per attempt. That's a top 5 mark, a 129.5 passer rating when throwing outside the numbers. I think Josh McDaniels has done an unbelievable job of simplifying the game for Drake May, isolating routes on the outside, wheeling tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. Quick game under center has helped a lot. I think these one-on-one matchups, finding Stephon Diggs and Kayshon Boutte one-on-one outside, has worked so well for this offense right now. And I've actually got a film breakdown breakdown on this coming out most likely tomorrow, I believe, early in the day tomorrow. And it's just Drake May and Josh McDaniels working so well east and west because they don't have a ton of downfield speed threats in this offense, right? They haven't gotten Kyle Williams involved at all. They're not really pushing the ball vertically down the field, but they're stressing defenses east and west from sideline to sideline with a mountain of different concepts. And it actually reminds me a lot of the one year that Josh McDaniels had Mac Jones in 2021, his rookie season. And Mac Jones throwing outside the numbers that year was the 8th highest graded passer in the NFL. McDaniel leaves to go to Vegas. That production drops off the table. So I think New England right now with a bunch of different weapons and with Drake May throwing the ball so well, they're attacking the outer parts of the field. And that's an interesting matchup because the Saints outside the numbers have actually the 3rd highest coverage grade in the NFL right now. We'll see where the emphasis goes for the Saints defense in this game to stop those outside throws, but that's where Drake May is winning right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of strength on strength on both sides of the ball in this matchup. I was going to call out the fact that two of the highest graded players on New Orleans team last week in the win were their outside corners, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Alontae Taylor. And I think that those guys matching up against May outside the numbers is going to make for a really intriguing matchup. I also think on the other side of things, Spencer Rattler has had a lot of success when they have been willing to dial it up deep. 9.2 average depth of target last week. 2.44 time to throw. I mean, Spencer Rattler was confident last week against this Giants defense and with throwing the ball further down the field. So the average depth of target went up, and yet the time to throw was his lowest of the season. So there's a ton of confidence in how he was able to play last week. And so you think, all right, well, they're going to continue to dial it up. They're going to continue to hunt for these explosive plays, which they really need. But on the other side of things, over the last 2 weeks specifically, when Christian Gonzalez has been back for the New England Patriots, 48.7 coverage grade on passes of 15 or more yards. Now, you might say to yourself, whoa, hold on, 48.7, that's not very high. But you got to think, anytime a team is attempting a pass that is 15 or more yards down the field, when they're connecting on it, your coverage grade as a team takes a massive hit. It's not like you're giving up an underneath 5-yard pass or something like that. If you're giving up something that is considered an explosive play, your coverage grade is going to go down. So that 48.7 coverage grade on those deeper passes is actually 8th best in the NFL over the last 2 weeks. So since getting Christian Gonzalez back, the confidence has really been there for this New England secondary. And we'll see. It's, Walt, I saw a couple other people in the chat were mentioning this, like, hey, it's a young team for the New England Patriots. Like, could this be they're coming off the high of going to Buffalo and defeating this team. Are they going to have that same sort of focus and discipline to be able to go in New Orleans and do the same thing against an opponent that, if you don't catch yourself, you could certainly think of this group as inferior. And you could say, hey, we just beat the Bills in Buffalo. We're going to walk into New Orleans and get this win easy. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case. And so this game could be wacky. I'm not taking the Saints in this one like I did last week. I'm going Patriots 21, Saints 13. I think at least the Patriots defense is going to lock in for this one. And although I don't expect the Patriots offense to be as consistent and explosive as it was last week, I do think it's enough for them to get the win. So 21-13 New England here from me.
I actually love that was brought up in the chat there with the veteran players, because I think that was a big factor in their win in Buffalo, is they got the big contributions from veteran players. Stephon Diggs, guys like Morgan Moses, Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, Garrett Bradbury, even Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels as the veteran coaches, right, running the team right now. I think that is a big factor, and those veteran guys have to be the ones to get them through another road game in a loud environment and go, hey, guys, just because we got a big win last week doesn't mean we don't have the job to do this week. I think a big factor on the field in this game is that, look, New England's offensive line is one of the most improved units in the NFL. They're 5th in the league in pass blocking grade. The Saints have the lowest pass rush grade in the NFL, and I think the fact that Drake May is going to have so many clean pockets is going to be the difference in this game. I think the Saints defense keeps them in it. I'm taking New England to get a close win, 20-17.
All right, so similar scores there, 20-17, and then I had 21-13. But this is probably the sneakiest, intriguing game that we have this week, given the fact that you wouldn't necessarily think it's a strength on both sides of the ball, but it does feel like that is the case. So we'll see which team can come out on top. And I'm very curious to see how the veterans, like you mentioned, lead this New England Patriots team. And if they're able to come out, man, hit the ground running just like they left off last week, man, then we need to start talking about this Patriots team a lot more seriously throughout the rest of the season and perhaps even into the playoffs. All right, before we get to the next game, AFC North battle between the Browns and the Steelers, there's some things the school didn't teach you, right? Like maybe how to handle the financial world or how to have a plan now for success later. Well, that includes your kids as well. And Fabric by Gerber Life helps you by setting up a kids investment account that helps prepare them for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life, it was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Your kids can't invest while they're minors, but a UGMA specific kids investment account allows you to invest on their behalf. It gives their investments so much more time to grow. The funds can be used for nearly anything. Maybe you want to tap into it while they're still young, maybe for tuition, books, summer camps, sports, after-school activities, whatever that looks like. And then when they're adults, maybe you're helping them buy their first car, buy their first house, maybe even start a business. Whole thing is online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes, and you can get started investing with as little as $1 a day. Then you just manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. There's no contribution limits to it. Got multiple tax advantages. It's all SIPC insured up to $500,000 plus no commission fees to it, just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. You guys can join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Browns at Steelers. A titanic NFC North matchup between maybe one of the best defenses in the NFL and then the Steelers, just a team that absolutely does not beat themselves ever. So I'm curious how you feel that this game script is going to go, Dalton. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, there's going to be a whole lot of defense. I think on both sides of this, it's going to look a lot like that Vikings-Browns game last week that one team barely got over 20 points and won the game. I mean, at this point, we could pretty much just call them the Cleveland Hawkeyes because that's what it is. It's the NFL version of Iowa football, and if there's another team that embodies that, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Aaron Rodgers is one of, early in the season, we talked about this after week 1 or week 2, I think it was, that it's an interesting case of the surface level stats say he's been okay, and the grading and some of the underneath says it's really not. You're getting by with it, right? Aaron Rodgers is actually the lowest graded qualified quarterback in the NFL, but I think his style and the way that he just gets rid of the ball quickly and goes to his pre-snap reads is going to help him in this game with avoiding that elite pass rush the Browns have, Myles Garrett and those guys with the Steelers struggling tacklers, and B, just finding ways to beat man coverage. So Aaron Rodgers, while he is extremely lowly graded because he hasn't been able to throw the ball downfield very well, he does have the fastest average time to throw in the NFL. He does have the lowest average depth of target in the NFL, and he does have the 9th highest adjusted completion rate. So what does that tell you? He wants to get rid of the football quickly, and hopefully the Steelers receivers can win after the catch. You're going to have to do that in this game, right? So I think his style of play in this game is it works to his advantage because if he holds the football for 3 seconds or longer in this game, he's going down. There's just no question about it with Myles Garrett, Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, all the guys the Browns have up front. They're probably going to win the battle more often than not when the Steelers have to drop back and pass protect. So obviously they would like to run the football better, also hard to do on this team. I think it's the reason it's going to be a low-scoring game because even the Steelers, as the favorite here, have to be very conservative when it comes to what they can and can't do in their offense. But Rodgers' style does at least give him some sort of advantage here when it comes to beating the pass rush because that's my thing, Trev. If they can't protect you, protect yourself, and that's really the ultimate Aaron Rodgers goal here.
Over under of 37 and a half.
And I think the under last week, it didn't hit last week on the final touchdown. It was like 34 or something last week against Minnesota, but I think it should hit under again this week because I just don't see either team scoring a whole lot.
Yeah, and you talked about how important yards after catch was for the Steelers and the Browns. I don't have the number in front of me, but I know they've been a good tackling team. They defended the run really well. I feel like they're going to be solid enough to where they're not going to allow all of those yards after catch. Like the Vikings game where the Steelers played the Vikings. I mean, that was the killer for them, is that the Vikings just allowed a ton of yards after the catch. They didn't necessarily do anything spectacular. Same with that Jets game to open up the season. Steelers didn't do anything spectacular on the offensive side of the ball, but they took advantage when the defense wasn't there. And that is a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. I want to give him credit for that, of being able to see that for the defense and certainly deliver an accurate ball where his wide receivers can gain those yards after the catch. But I do feel like the Browns are going to have an ability to clamp down on that more than other defenses the Steelers have played so far this year. So Gabriel got his first start at quarterback for the Browns last week in London. And I thought he played well. I mentioned on the Monday show where, okay, he played well. I don't necessarily think that he played well enough to win the game, and obviously they did not win the game, and I think that was in large part because he just really didn't throw it down the field very much. But when I sort of tried to look at the splits of how he was passing the football last week, he had a 78.3 passing grade, specifically when he was targeting receivers outside the numbers. I know David Njoku and Harold Fannin had those big days, so there people were probably like, oh, like over the middle of the field stuff. But honestly, 98 passing yards, which is more than half his passing yards, I believe. Yeah, we're outside the numbers there, and I think the passing grade was better. He had more completions in that area. That was the more consistent part of his game last week, specifically because, I mean, let's face it, he's smaller than 6 feet tall. He's listed right around 5'11 and a half from his numbers at the combine. And when you're a shorter quarterback, it's more difficult to be able to read the middle of the field over your offensive line and just as the chaos is going on. So being able to attack outside the numbers, I think, is really important for him. Steelers have a 54.7 coverage grade when defending outside the numbers this year, which isn't bad, but it does signal that this could still be an area of success for Dillon Gabriel. Maybe they can pump up the average depth of target this week compared to what they did last week. I get a little bit worried about picking the Browns in this game because the Browns were able to run the ball really well with Judkins last week. And I'm not so sure I can predict exactly that to happen again. I would like to see Dylan Sampson get more in the mix. I would like to see Dylan Sampson as a receiver getting more into the mix than being a little bit more diverse out of the backfield. If the offensive line can continue to play well, I actually do have a lot of faith in the Browns defense to clamp down on what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do on that side of the ball on offense. And so this one's going to be super low scoring. It'll come down to whoever can take care of the ball better. You went with the Steelers 16-13. So for fun, I'll go Browns 16-13 because I really do think that this is a coin flip type of a game. And I'll go the exact same score as you, except I will flip who I have winning this game.
That's just the type of football game you're getting, and I think you mentioned a couple of the right things there. Number one, turnovers, right? Whoever gives the other offense a short field, that's gonna be a problem, right? And that's how you get those easy points on the board against these two defenses and these two pass rushers. Two, who can manufacture just enough in the run game? Quinshon Judkins has been really good the last few weeks. The Steelers against Minnesota, that was a big development in their game, is that they were able to run the football at least at an average level that balanced out their offense. And three, who's just gonna pop that one or two explosive plays that matters in the passing game? I think the guy who's most likely to do that is DK Metcalf at least once or twice, even though the Browns have been really good with their man coverage this year. So I've got Steelers 16-13. I just think this is a game it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be ugly for a long time and probably go down to the wire. Would it even shock me if it was lower scoring than that? Absolutely not. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of fireworks. You got two really good pass rushers getting after these quarterbacks.
So the Rams are traveling to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens in the next game here. And, dude, the Ravens' schedule before the bye week, brutal. Think of what this schedule would have looked like preseason, okay? You start the season at Buffalo. And then you go against the Cleveland Browns, which, okay, like the Browns, they were probably always going to beat the Browns, even with the defense obviously playing as well as is this year, and they won that game. But then they played the Lions, the Chiefs, the Texans, who, like, the Texans haven't been good this year, but preseason, a lot of people were picking the Texans to potentially win the AFC South and be one of the better teams in the AFC this year if the offensive line was going to hold up. Obviously, it hasn't, but it was the Texans, and now it's the Rams before the bye week. They had Bills, Lions, Chiefs, Texans, Rams. Brutal. Going back and looking at this, the Ravens' goal should have been 4-2. At that point. Now, obviously, they're 1-4, and so they're well behind that, and it's tough because of all of the injuries they have. But man, just before we really dove into this game, I mean, that is a brutal stretch to start the season. Where do you want to start this one? You want to talk about the Ravens, or you want to talk about the Rams for this matchup?
I think it really does just come down to, can the Ravens, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Cooper Rush, and it's looking more and more like it's going to be Cooper Rush again, they have any chance against this Rams defensive line to block. And now Ronnie Stanley is trending towards maybe being back this week at left tackle. That's a huge development, but this Ravens offensive line has to be better. You spotlight Jared Verse and this Rams defensive line. They've been unbelievable. They really have taken a step up from last year. Verse is obviously great. Byron Young's been fantastic. Kobe Turner's great. Poona Ford on the inside has been everything they could possibly ask for. Their defensive line, they're fourth in run defense grade and lead the league in run stops. They're fifth in pass rush grade and fourth in pass rush win rate. It's not just that they do one or the other well. They do everything well on every down. It's one of the elite defensive lines in football. We saw against one of the best D lines, especially edge pairings last week in Houston, that they just dominated the game. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, you've got an even more loaded group, especially on the inside with this Rams defensive line. So even if Lamar Jackson were to play, and it looks like he's not going to, the Ravens have serious problems in the trenches in this game if their offensive line doesn't start playing better. Again, getting Stanley back would help, but I don't know if that's enough against one of the most unblockable teams in the league.
Yeah, the Rams are pretty ferocious on both sides of the trenches, and I did not realize this before we did the preview, but just talking about the Rams offense, Dalton, they have the number one run blocking grade in the NFL through 5 weeks. The Los Angeles Rams do at an 80.7 offensive line run blocking grade. That's first in the NFL. Now, the contrast is they haven't been very good in pass protection. 46.7 pass blocking grade. That is a stark contrast from what they are running the football. That's 29th in the NFL. There's 66 total pressures that they've given up. That's 24th. 32.2 pressure percentage. That's 25th. So they're in the bottom half and in the 20s, bottom 10 in all of those categories when it comes to pass blocking. The issue is, I don't think the Ravens are going to test them there because I don't think they're going to have to. The Ravens have been one of the worst run defense teams in the NFL through 5 weeks of the season, and with as good of a run blocking team as the Rams are, they're just going to hand the ball off. I don't even know how much Matthew Stafford has to do in this game. When it's called upon, I think that he'll be reliable because Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, that combination there has been fantastic for them. But to be honest with you, I just think the Rams are going to have their way with the Ravens in this game. Nothing that the Ravens have done yet tells me that they're going to be able to hang in this game. And if the Rams are just going to continue to run and run and run, and if Cooper Rush makes any mistakes at all whatsoever, they're just going to lean into that more and more. Then they've had so much success with that throughout this season. So we talked about strength on strength with the Patriots and Saints matchup in a couple of ways. This feels like strength on weakness in a major way that favors the Los Angeles Rams in this game. I have the Rams winning this one big. I have them winning 31-13. I do not have faith in what the Ravens have out there. Even if the guys that were hurt are going to be playing, what's their percentage? They 70% healthy, 80% healthy. They're just trying to get out there to help the team because of how bad the product's been over the last couple of weeks. You talked about how good this Rams defensive front is. Is that going to give Derrick Henry any daylight at all whatsoever? Because it's not like Henry's been there to save the day for them over the last couple of weeks either. So it's just hard to have faith in this Ravens team right now, especially against one of the top 8, if not top 5 teams in the NFL in the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, when I first wrote down a score of 27-17, I was kind of hedging just in case Lamar Jackson were to play, but it could absolutely be wider than that. I've got the Rams as well, and there's a couple points to make about that. One, you mentioned the pass rush for the Ravens. Think about it this way. Their two leaders in pressures, Odafe Owe and Nnamdi Madubuike, One's out for the season, and one just got traded to the Chargers. So they don't even have really – they have even less pass rush today than they did, say, a week or two ago, right? And you mentioned Derrick Henry and the run game trying to get that going, but the Rams' additions of Poona Ford and Nate Landman at linebacker too, they've made the run defense a lot better than it was last year. Last year, they really tilted towards the pass rush, and you could get them a little bit in run defense. Now, this front seven is as complete as any in the NFL right now with those additions. So I'm with you. The Ravens big, I think, in this game, especially with Lamar still out.
Yeah, and the chat's talking about this too. Like, even if the Rams have to get the passing game involved, I mean, who covers Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams? Well, nobody's really been able to so far this season, and it's hard to think that the Ravens are going to be able to if they're not able to generate a pass rush. And even if they are able to generate a pass rush, I just mentioned the pass rush numbers and how inefficient the pass blocking has been for the Rams, and they've still gone off. Matthew Stafford is still one of the top 3 highest graded quarterbacks that we have in the league so far this season. So people have been getting pressure on Matthew Stafford, and it hasn't been mattering. So it's hard to find a way that the Ravens win this football game outside of Derrick Henry having like a 200-yard rushing game. Like, outside of that, it's just really hard for me to think that they're going to score more than the Rams are, even with them hosting this one. Let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. I think QJ in the chat said a little bit earlier, Panthers 40, Cowboys 17 was his official prediction there. Curious if you're going to tail him there on that one, Dalton. But where do you want to start talking? You want to start about the Cowboys, or you want to talk about the Panthers?
Well, we'll see if I tail him on the win. I can tell you I won't have it 40-17 one way or the other, because I think it is a better football game than that. But no, I think what you have here is an interesting dynamic with both of these two defenses, okay? And I'll go on the Cowboys offensive side here, but these two defenses play the most zone coverage of any teams in the NFL. The Cowboys first, the Panthers second. So I'll go on Dak Prescott's side of this, because he's just torn zone defenses apart this year. I mean, if you let him see what you're doing back there and you're just staring at him, he's going to beat you, and he's going to throw through those windows. He has the second highest passing grade in the NFL against zone coverage at 92.4. He's completing 80% of his passes. 6 touchdowns is tied for first. 9 big-time throws is second most in the NFL behind Baker Mayfield against zone coverage. And we know the the Panthers a lot of weeks, they don't get a ton of pass rush against any team, but this Dallas team showed with their their injured offensive line, they can still pass protect a bit. And Dak Prescott's been one of the best passers in football under pressure anyway. So I think Prescott getting to stand back there against this pass rush and all this Ejiro Evero zone coverage, it points to the Cowboys scoring a lot of points again. I mean, he's just raging hot. He's seeing the field so well, and he's making just about every throw you can imagine.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against Dak right now, and spoiler, I'm not going to do it. Although I don't want to sell QJ short on predicting the Panthers score. He said 45-17,
Boy,
not just 40.
Just the unwavering confidence of that pick right there.
I love it.
Man, oh man,
Gotta have it. Coming off that thrilling win against the Dolphins. Why not hit the gas pedal?
Keep pounding.
So in that Week 5 matchup, the Panthers ran the ball really well. But we talked about this on the review show. It's not necessarily because Rico Dowdle looked like the second coming of LaDainian Tomlinson. Rico Dowdle was good in this game. He was decisive, he was running hard, and he had a couple of missed tackles, and certainly he was able to lower the shoulder and get some good yards after contact in this game. But if you go back and you watch a lot of his best runs, a lot of them came from just having really big rushing lanes to run through, and him just getting escorted through the offensive line and through the trenches and sort of going untouched as he's getting past the line of scrimmage. That comes from a really good run blocking unit that the Panthers had in Week 5, and one that we saw a lot from them last year as well. 74.8 run blocking grade from this team last week. That's a really good score. 46.7 impact run blocking percentage and a 56.7 defeated run blocking rate. So what I want to talk about there with that is you see the impact run blocking percentage, 46.7. It's on the lower side of things. So when you look at teams around the league, you'll see 50%, 60%. The best ones will be like somewhere around 70%. And impact run blocking percentage, for those of you that are, again, sort of new to the PFF system and terminology, that is whenever we are giving a positive grade to a player when he's run blocking. We just categorize that as an impact run play. Could be a plus 0.5, plus 1, plus 1.5, whatever it is. Defeated is the opposite, whenever you are getting a negative grade on a singular play. Eric Eager, when funny enough, works for Carolina Panthers now, but before he was there, when he was at PFF, I remember him writing an article about how perfectly blocked running plays are the best plays in the NFL. And it's because if they are perfectly blocked, if everyone is doing their job exactly the way that they need to, if nobody is messing up, if nobody is having a negative grade, then the EPA per play on those plays is so high because it's easy. All you're doing is handing the ball off. There's no risk. There's not a turnover. You're not going to take a sack. You're not going to take a negative play. You're not going to throw an interception. You're just handing the ball off. Could a fumble happen? Sure, but those happen less. And so those perfectly blocked plays are the best plays in the NFL. And going to sort of what we talked about there for the Carolina Panthers, their defeated run blocking percentage was higher than some of the best in the league. There's no question about it. But sometimes it's not just about gaining a positive play in the run game. Sometimes it's just about mitigating negatives. Just do your job. Just don't blow the play for the rest of the offensive linemen. And I feel like Carolina has been doing a pretty decent job of that early on this season, and they could even do a better job of it moving forward. And so I say all of that to say Rico Dowdle, the reason why his rushing grade wasn't, like a 95 last week is because the offensive line just straight up was not having a lot of negative plays in the run game. If they continue to do that, Carolina can continue to stay balanced on offense. Because, look, just a spoiler, I'm taking the Cowboys in this game because I'm taking the quarterback that I trust more. For as much as Bryce Young had his good moments in the second half of that game against the Dolphins, I can't forget about the first quarter and the first half. Just like I can't forget about what we saw in Arizona in the first half and the first quarter. And that's just how Bryce Young has been so far this season. So with his ups and downs, and especially with the ups and downs coming from turnovers, I'm going to trust the guy who is more of an MVP candidate at quarterback in Dak Prescott. I am saying Cowboys 27, Panthers 17, but the way the Panthers make this game a lot closer is if they're able to run the ball. I don't want to say as well because Rico Dowdle had 200 yards last week, but if they're able to run the ball efficiently the way they were last week, you keep Dak Prescott off the field and you score more points for your side on the scoreboard. And I think that's the formula for them. Can they do that again? Ultimately, though, I am still taking the Cowboys because I don't want to bet against Dak with how he's playing.
I'm leaning Dallas also. I have it closer. I have it 27-24. I think we could get a high-scoring game because, look, the Dallas defense, say what you want for it last week, they were playing the Jets, right? It's still not a unit we can necessarily trust. So I think you do have two vulnerable defenses with two offenses with the opportunity to score a lot of points. And to your point about Carolina's run blocking, too, that's how they're going to have to win this game is having balance and Bryce Young making enough throws like he did last week. I was looking at actually prepping for the Detroit Lions game last night, and I was fully expecting to go into our impact run blocking numbers and the Lions would be first. And they ended up second, and I looked at the first place team, and I'm like, for the season now, this isn't just last week, for the season, and I look at the first place team, and it's the Carolina Panthers. And I was like, oh, okay, they're really getting after it up front. And you mentioned in the defeated run block percentage for the season, they're 18th. So, good enough there, average level. It could be even better there. But to be leading the league in a category like that on a team that has two opening day starters out on their offensive line, it's been solid. So if they can continue to have balance, they can win this game. But I'm with you. The most reliable player on the field on either side is Dak Prescott. So I've got the Cowboys 27-24.
QJ saying the Panthers defense shut down the Cowboys. They shut down the Falcons. They'll definitely destroy the Cowboys. I really don't know what to think about Carolina. There's times when I love what they've got out there, and there's times when they're super disappointing. I think that's been their season 5 weeks in.
Or we're just making the mistake because they're playing at home, and maybe they'll just win all their home
They're
games.
Undefeated at home. It's true.
Maybe. I think it is going to be very quietly a fun game, though. I think where both offenses have a lot of chances to succeed.
With the over-under is almost 50 points in this one. So
yeah,
Vegas is closer to what you think with the score than me because you have it at
51. I have it at then. Yeah,
you got it at 51 and I have it at 44. So closer to what you think. We'll see. Seahawks and the Jaguars. Jags hosting the Seahawks this week. Long trip across the country for Seattle after a big-time Monday Night Football win at home against Kansas City. That's Jacksonville, of course. Where are we starting with this one, Dalton? Seahawks or Jags?
We've got such a great matchup when Seattle has the football. Sam Darnold's still been throwing the ball great. He was fantastic again outside of maybe one throw against Tampa Bay. And I mentioned last week with Sam Darnold how he's the best passer in the league right now, throwing over the middle of the field. Well, he's got a really fun matchup against a Jacksonville team that is the best team in the NFL covering over the middle of the field. You look at what Devin Lloyd and those linebackers have been doing. Obviously, he had the big pick six against Kansas City on Monday night. The safeties have been outstanding. The corners still getting better on the outside. Tyson Campbell. Jordan Lewis has been outstanding in the slot. We see a little bit of Travis Hunter on defense, too. He was really good against Kansas City. But this Jacksonville team covering between the numbers, that same area where Sam Darnold's leading the league in passing grade, this Jacksonville team, first in coverage grade, first in EPA per pass allowed, first in interceptions. This is such a great strength-on-strength matchup to see what Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold can do in the middle of the field where they've been so strong this year, and it's been arguably the best part of their offense. That's where Anthony Campanelli has shut down opponents, is over the middle of the field with these safeties, with Jordan Lewis in the slot, with these linebackers playing such outstanding football. So I think you just have such a good battle on the inside there, and if Seattle can make the adjustments to find windows in all of that zone coverage, it's going to be a lot of fun to see if Sam Darnold can do that. And then if the Jaguars really shut it down like they have been throughout the first 5 weeks, then their defense could carry them to another win. It's a great matchup on that side of the ball.
I think a lot of people in the chat are saying this, and I agree with them. Like, this is the game of the week. Like, the Lions play the Chiefs, which I think is okay, understandably so, the primetime game. I think that's the Sunday Night Football game, and it is. But this is the crown jewel of the afternoon games that we have on Sunday, the Seahawks going up against the Jags. You know, we've talked a lot about a lot of the Jags team. You know, you've talked about on the defensive side of the football, and you sort of mentioned it there, their coverage over the middle of the field, how they're pairing things with pass rush and how tight they've been in coverage and how cohesive that they have been. And I'm going to talk about Travis Hunter in a second, but like on the other side of the ball, okay, Trevor Lawrence has been a little bit hot and cold, but man, that offensive line I think is playing a lot better than people thought that it was going to. I think that Liam Cohen really knows how to get the most out of an offensive line. He was able to do that well in Tampa. He's able to do that well here in Jacksonville. Speaking of what he's been able to do there, the run game, I think, was once again, now it wasn't super explosive last week against Kansas City, but it was efficient with Trevor Lawrence and with Travis Etienne. So I just think that those are constants now on this Jaguars team. I specifically want to talk about Travis Hunter and how I believe last week was the closest to Heisman Trophy version of Travis Hunter that we had seen so far in the NFL. I wrote an article about this earlier this week on PFF.com, which you guys can go see over there. Travis Hunter last week against Kansas City, 25 snaps at cornerback, had a 77.3 coverage grade. 39 snaps as a wide receiver, had a 77.4 receiving grade. He had 3 targets for 3 catches, 64 receiving yards, and he had that incredible catch between 2 defenders that was for 44 yards, which was, you know, the one that everybody showed on all the highlights. He was targeted 3 times in the game as well, but he only gave up 1 catch for 7 yards, and it was simply just an off coverage look where I believe that they were playing quarters on it. He was playing off quarters coverage. He's going up against Xavier Worthy. Worthy is just a quick little comeback route. He gives up the 7-yard catch, but then he tackles him pretty quickly. Every other time that he was on Xavier Worthy in this game, he was the deep threat neutralizer. And I think that he is really coming into his own as a cornerback specifically, because we talked about this with Kansas City. Their offense has to operate with Xavier Worthy being that constant threat no matter what. And the Jags were able to, they didn't put Travis Hunter on shadow coverage, but anytime that Xavier Worthy was lined up on his side of the line of on the field, of the trenches, I should say, he was able to, I mean, that deep pass, that third target of the game to open up the fourth quarter, he is stride for stride with Xavier Worthy the entire way. That is the luxury of this type of athlete that we have with him playing the cornerback position. So I know there's a lot of people out there, especially a lot of people that have him in fantasy football, that are like, hey, just let him be a receiver. We saw what he could do as a receiver last week against Kansas City. Let's just let him be a receiver. They'll start letting him be a full-time wide receiver when he stops being the best vertical threat neutralizer that they have on defense. That is such a weapon for them. And the way that Hunter was able to play to the success level he was able to have last week against Kansas City, that showed us why he gets drafted number 2 overall. That showed us why you're trading that future first-round pick to go up and get him for the value that he brings you on both sides of the ball. So now I think that we're really starting to cook of Lawrence getting maximum value on both sides of the ball as a corner and as a wide receiver. It was a lot of fun to see last week. I really hope we get Devin Witherspoon back in the lineup, and it looks like we are going to for the Seattle Seahawks, because Witherspoon against Hunter, because Hunter mainly lines up as that slot wide receiver for Jacksonville. He'll see a lot of Devin Witherspoon, and that will just be some incredible athletes going one-on-one on that side of the ball. But man, I cannot wait to see this one. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I can't wait to see how they continue to use Travis Hunter in this game. All of that to say, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks. I'm taking the Seahawks in this game 27-23. It's a coin flip game for me. It really is. And it's kind of one of those games where I'm picking the Seahawks, one, because I think that they're going to bounce back well after a tough loss against the Buccaneers last week. But I also am kind of picking the Seahawks because I want to see it from the Jaguars. I want to see them stack really good wins. And if you can beat Kansas City on primetime and then beat the Seattle Seahawks with no type of drop-off, now I'm really considering you one of the best teams in the AFC and can have confidence for you moving forward. But I have a ton of confidence in the Seahawks as well. I'm a big fan of theirs. I picked them to win the division. I'm still bullish on them. I am going to take them in this game as a bounce-back candidate.
I'm so mad at you right now. Because honestly, I wrote down my score first last night prepping for this. And I picked Seattle to win 24-21, and I'm with you. It's maybe the hardest game of the week to pick. And I took Seattle thinking, oh, Trev's not going to pick them going cross-country. The Jags are riding high. Their defense is really good. He's going to go on a Travis Hunter run. I thought for sure you were picking Jacksonville in this game. I thought for sure you were going to do it, and I was like, give me the Seahawks just because it really is a coin flip game, and you had to go and ruin it. And now we agree on something else, and you know what happens when we agree too much. We're going to end up going 5-10 again together this week because of games like this. Right now, I'm so mad that you picked Seattle in this game.
You know what?
I thought I was reversing the trend here and going, okay, fine, I'll take the Seahawks. Oh, don't change it now. You already went on the rant.
No, the game deserves us to be split. So I'll take Jacksonville.
You're gonna flip it now. You're doing the last second flip.
I'll flip it.
I thought for sure I was outsmarting you
flip
here.
Game. So and I think this game is good enough where it deserves us to be on either side of the line. So I will take the Jags. Same score, 27-23.
So now,
I'll take Jacksonville.
just like Travis Hunter, you're playing both sides. That's what you're doing.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Just call a tie. It's going to be a tie, Trev. Now that you've done this, it's going to be a tie. That's what's going to happen here. You've gone full Travis Hunter playing both sides. Look at this.
I'm going to throw that at you one of these weeks. I'll be like, I have this game ending in a tie, 24-24. I'm gonna hit you with that one time just to throw you, but I've got to time it perfectly so that it throws you off.
Oh, it'll be
as much as possible.
It'll be some. Well, I mean, it just has to be some sort of game with nonsense circumstances. Like that Cowboys Packers game was the perfect game to finish in a tie. It really was. Just nobody satisfied with any of it. I mean, all right, you're flipping. You're doing the official flip here. You're going the other way. All right.
Yes.
All right,
I think that we should. The game deserves to have a 1-1 split.
It's the hardest game of the week to pick, I think, by far.
It is.
I really do.
It's tough. It is. We've got 6 more games that we're getting to here in this preview, so we're rolling along here. But I want to remind everybody that October 10th, it's World Mental Health Day. This year, we are saying thank you to therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. It's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one of them is a therapist that showed up, listened, and helped someone take a step forward. Moments of therapy, like asking the right questions, having a safe place to get emotional or cry, or a small win, whatever that looks like, it can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp is honoring those connections and the therapists who make them possible while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. I've told you guys this before. I've been doing therapy for over 2 years, and I could not recommend it anymore. It has helped so much with all the relationships in my life, friendships, relationships with my family. Honestly, as cliche as it sounds, the relationship with myself. I feel so much more confident in who I am every single day, and a big reason why is because of therapy. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on 1.7 million clients. This World Mental Health Day, we are celebrating the therapists who have helped millions of people take that step forward, and if you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off of their first month at betterhelp.com/PFF. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF. Titans and Raiders. Wake up, Walt. We're talking Raiders again. Titans coming off of a thrilling victory against the Arizona Cardinals. The Raiders coming off of a pretty tough defeat against the Indianapolis Colts. You want to talk about the Raiders? You want to talk about the Titans here?
First and most importantly, did we get a Walt lunch call out? What's he got going? Is that?
Oh, did he throw something on the grill? Normally he tells us what he's throwing on the grill for dinner. But is he firing up the grill for lunch?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't know if he's doing that now or what.
I feel like it's pork chops a lot of times. So if I had to guess, I would guess pork chops.
Okay.
He's a big pork chop.
I wasn't sure if we'd heard from him. That's kind of honestly, I've kind of taken that as like important news of the show now. It's like, what does Walt have on the grill? That's kind of a big thing, man. I think that's great stuff. He's got to get Omaha as a sponsor is what's got to happen here. All right, anyway.
Him personally, yes.
Actually, just a one-man sponsor for Omaha.
He doesn't even need it as a sponsor. You can go to omahasteaks.com. Get 50% off. There's your freebie.
Code
right there.
PFF. Boom.
Shout out Omaha Steaks.
All right, as usual with the Raiders, it's about Geno Smith, and is there going to be more success throwing the football downfield, because it has not been great this season. These 10-plus yard throws, we've talked about how hot and cold it's been, how streaky it's been. 15.9 passing grade this season on 10-plus yard throws, only completing 39.7% of those passes, and 8 interceptions. 8 interceptions on vertical throws alone so far through 5 games. Now, if you're going to beat this Titans team, I think you do have some advantages on the outside when you're attacking L'Jarius Sneed in this secondary. They're 25th in the NFL in coverage grade, defending 10-plus yard throws. So Geno Smith, as we know by now, he's quite high variance, more so than ever on this Raiders team. I think they've had a problem, having somebody else step up on the outside. Trey Tucker's been hot and cold as well, but he's a smaller speed threat who's going to make a couple of plays a game. They need either Dante Thornton or Jack Bech, somebody to win downfield, and for Geno Smith to be able to make these throws. But I think that's going to be the difference in the game once again. I think Ashton Jinty's starting to get it rolling the last couple weeks. They're going to run the football reasonably well against this Titans team, but the difference in this game is going to be Geno Smith and his performance throwing the ball down the field against a vulnerable Titans secondary.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. Geno getting back to being more efficient, passing the ball deep down the field. It's just going to be how the Raiders win. In the games where he looks incredible doing that, they're going to win, and the games where he doesn't, they're not. And I think that's just the high variance of Geno being your quarterback. On the Tennessee Titans things, look, I don't want to take anything away from their win last week against the Arizona Cardinals, but I'm not going to get too carried away with it, and I can't, because they've been so bad through the first, 4 3/4 weeks of the NFL season. The fourth quarter was magical from them, and Cam Ward was unbelievable. But even in that fourth quarter, I want to be very clear, like, Cam still had some throws that you go, oh, okay, like that was almost a turnover-worthy play there from him, but he just had some unbelievable throws, 3 big-time throws in that fourth quarter. And again, I'm not taking anything away from there. What I think is actually the most tangible takeaway of why the Tennessee Titans were able to win against the Arizona Cardinals was that it was the best day from their offensive line that they had so far this season. 78.9 overall blocking grade from their team in week 5. They were one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL prior to last week. They had an 81.2 team pass blocking grade, a 73.3 run blocking grade as a team. Both of those were season highs. Now, where I get a little bit nervous is J.C. Latham, who has missed the last 4 weeks due to a hip injury. It looks like he's going to be back in the starting lineup this week, but Oli Udoh, who was replacing him, he had a really good week last week. And again, I almost wouldn't mess up the chemistry of this offensive line for how well they played. I'd almost tell J.C. Latham, hey man, just take another week off, just get another week of rest in there, because I would want to throw the same 5 offensive linemen that played really well for me last week out there against the Raiders. And outside of Max Crosby, the Raiders really don't have very much of a pass rush at all. Even with Max Crosby, they're 19th in pass rush grade and pass rush win percentage over the last 2 weeks specifically. And those are 2 weeks in which Max Crosby was cooking when he was playing really well. So there's not really much outside of Crosby. And if I were the Titans, I would be very wary of messing up what was the best offensive line performance they had last week. So to me, that was the most tangible part of why they were able to win that game. Outside of the wackiness that happened with the Cardinals and DeMarcado fumbling the football and DTD fumbling the ball into the end zone, like all of that aside, the Titans were even able to move the football down the field and score and capitalize off of that because of the offensive line. And I get a little bit nervous with them switching things up. I think the Raiders win this game 24-16. Thought about taking the Titans for a second, but it's just so much had to go right for them to win that game at the last second. So it's hard for me to still think that it's stable for this team moving forward, given how undisciplined they had been through most of the season up to that point. So I'm still going to say that the Raiders win this game.
I've really thought about taking the Titans here, too. I think if this game was in Tennessee, I would take the Titans. But they got to take maybe they're staying out on the West Coast after playing in Arizona last week. But I really thought about it. I do think the Titans have an opportunity to win this game. I have the Raiders 23-17. If the Titans can protect Cam Ward with the way he threw the ball in the fourth quarter last week, especially vertically down the field, I think they absolutely have a shot. I also have one more just quick pop quiz for you, something I found interesting in the run game in this game. Trev, the top 5 linebackers in the league right now in run defense grade, okay? Here we go. Number 1's Bobby Wagner, because of course. Number 2 is Jack Campbell, reasonable. Number 3 is Fred Warner, of course. Number 5 is Demario Davis, of course. Take a wild guess at who's number 4 in between there, Warner and Demario Davis.
Jamal Adams.
Great guess. Actually, love the guess considering how much we've talked about him. You would probably never get this. Titans' second-year linebacker, Cedric Gray.
Wow. Good for Cedric Gray.
Cedric Gray. He played less than 50 snaps on defense last year. He's got a 91.2 run defense grade right now. Cedric Gray against Ashton Ginty might be something really fun to watch on that side in the run game. I just found that astounding. You have 4 elite names, maybe the 4 best linebackers in football right there. And then just Cedric Gray just kind of thrown in there after not playing hardly at all last year.
They were pretty pumped about Cedric Gray in the preseason. I remember watching some preseason games of the Titans, and they were talking up Cedric Gray a lot for the training camp that he had and the preseason that he had. So it's great to see him translating that to the regular season. I know a lot of people were big on him when he was coming through the draft as well. Really athletic linebacker, and it just feels as though, sometimes when I watch these smaller, more athletic linebackers, I get a little bit worried. I'm like, man, are you big enough? Are you physical enough to play between the tackles and really be a reliable player? But, man, we see Cedric Gray this year. Remember Omar Speights last year with the Rams and Omar Speights was an undersized, fast linebacker who he went undrafted, and you go, okay, well, yeah, he's probably not going to make it in the league, and he ends up being fantastic. Now he's not having as good of a year this year, but still, it's that speed that can be so fantastic with you getting to a spot and being a good run defender. So shout out to Cedric Gray for that one. Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers coming off of a bye week here. Where are we starting with this one, Dalton?
Well, I think one thing we need to mention here is I'm going to talk about the Packers offense, but Zach Taylor, just before we came on this show, announced that Joe Flacco will start Sunday.
Well,
obviously they traded for him.
I kind of thought that was obvious.
They traded for him for a reason. I just wasn't sure that they would do it on 5 days notice. You have to come in and learn the playbook and all of that stuff. Maybe you get a week of buffer before you just throw him in there to the Wolves, and he gets to play the Packers for the second time in 4 weeks, right after beating them a few weeks ago in Cleveland. So that's one thing that needs to get mentioned. But I'm going to go on the other side real quick with Jordan Love, and a theme that I've been watching all season, I was hoping for in the preseason out of Jordan Love, is how good he's been at passing at the intermediate level of the field. Right? They brought in Matthew Golden with the speed. He's the deep threat with 4.2 speed, but to me, Jordan Love's biggest adjustment has been throwing in intermediate 10 to 19 yard windows. So I want to update that real quick. 92.3 passing grades so far this season on intermediate throws, third best in the NFL, fourth in yards per attempt, 157.1 passer rating on intermediate throws, Trevor. That's just over a point off a perfect passer rating on intermediate throws. And what you notice about this Bengals defense in coverage, obviously we've talked a lot about their D-line. Obviously Trey Hendrickson's a big problem, but in coverage, Their weakest players have actually so far been their linebackers. Logan Wilson, Demetrius Knight, a little bit of Barrett Carter, their other rookie linebacker there. That's really where they've been attacked the most, is at the linebacker position. And I think Tucker Kraft could be a guy who's in for a big day in this game, attacking that area of the field, with Golden taking the top off, with some of the other threats on the outside. Romeo Doubs got hot in their game against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. But I think that's really something that plays into Jordan Love's favor here when he drops back to throw, is attacking these linebackers and once again getting in those intermediate areas of the field where the Bengals linebackers have been struggling to cover.
You know, I had a Jake Browning stat, but I guess if he's not playing, it doesn't really matter. 53.4 passing grade under pressure is what Jake Browning has had, and we've seen what this Packers defensive line can look like and the types of pressure they can dial up. But I was also going to point out that Jamar Chase is still a 70.3 receiving grade when his quarterback is under pressure. So he's going to Jamar Chase anytime that he's under pressure, and he's played well. I assume that Joe Flacco will probably do the same, now having one of the best wide receivers in the NFL to be able to throw to. So that was sort of one stat that I wanted to mention here. But Dalton, the theme that I have had throughout this show is with running the football. Can you stop the run? Can you run the football yourself? The Cincinnati Bengals cannot run the football. Now, we have talked about the offensive line ad nauseum. Like, we have talked about how this offensive line is not doing anyone any favors when it comes to running or passing. So I'm not going to bring that up again. The Bengals are bad up front, like straight up. But as much as it's affecting the passing game, this is where it's really been an issue fundamentally. They're 32nd in total rushing yards gained. They're 29th in missed tackles forced. They're 29th in yards before contact, but then they're also 29th in yards after contact. So they don't have the offensive line up front, and they don't have the backs in the backfield to be creative and try to make up for it. This is just one of the worst, least explosive, least efficient, least successful, probably the best way to say it, rushing attacks in the NFL. And until that happens, I don't care who's at quarterback. If Joe Burrow was still at quarterback, this would be something that was holding the Cincinnati Bengals back. It's just much more of a glaring issue now because there's nothing to mitigate it from. So the Bengals are going to continue to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL until they can play better up front and until they can run the football. And that's just it. I don't care if it's Jake Browning who's starting, if it's Joe Flacco who's starting, if they traded for Jameis Winston. It does not matter. Now, Jameis has done, some crazy stuff under pressure. So, I mean, maybe he could have had a couple of circus plays here or there for you, but efficiency, repeatability wouldn't have been there. And it won't be there until they play better up front. And their offense just overall will not get better until they can run the ball better. So the Packers, middle of the pack, full pun intended, when it comes to defending the run. But it should be a game where they're able to continue to do that. Now, I think Cincinnati cannot be a surprise team unless they start to run the football. Packers struggled in their secondary for a couple weeks before they had the bye week, so maybe that goes into it here. I'll go Packers 31, Bengals 17 is the final score for me.
So the fun part about Flacco and Browning, looking at some numbers here, and this is really the reason they traded for Flacco. Flacco's not going to be any better under pressure, but the numbers under pressure are just about identical as Jake Browning. That part's not the part that matters. It's when Jake Browning's had a clean pocket that he's been unable to make the throws. Jake Browning, 55 passing grade in a clean pocket. I think I'm seeing here that's the worst among qualified quarterbacks. Joe Flacco with at least a more respectable 71, right? So if he is clean back there, the theory is he gives you a little bit better chance to make the throws. The problem is if he's still going to be under pressure 40% of the time, those are the plays that are going to make the difference in this game. The Packers, obviously one of the best pass rush teams led by Micah Parsons in the NFL. I'm taking the Packers big because, look, they tied with the Cowboys in a game there. I'm sure they feel like they should have won. Then they had to go into a bye week. Now they have to play Joe Flacco again, and they already lost. They lost to the Browns earlier in the year, so I'm sure they're not happy with Flacco beating them in that game. I think the Packers are going to come out pissed off and play really well at home. 35-14 Green Bay.
The San Francisco 49ers coming off of a big win that I think not many people expected them to win last week on Thursday Night Football against the Rams. They're taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers coming back home after a big win for them across the country in Seattle, Where do you want to start with this one, Dalton?
I'm going to start with your guy, man. Emeka Egbuka out there at wide receiver. We've talked about already.
Could have been anybody when you say your guy.
Could have been. There's 18 other teams that he could have been their guy. Absolutely, there's 18 other ones, and they said, you know what? We'll let him drop to the team that apparently didn't need receivers.
What are they,
but
all
really
Italian?
I don't. Wait, what's that?
You were just like, hey, we'll just let him drop
hypothetically, yeah. Well, anytime you're passing up a guy in the draft, you get to be really just, really kind of mafia. Yeah, we don't need him. We'll be all right without him. Let him go to Tampa. He'll be fine in Tampa. Yeah, it's that sort of, yeah, exactly. So I think the most surprising part of Egbuka's emergence, on top of just being one of the best receivers in football, is just the fact that he's out of nowhere become a deep threat. Like, we thought in the scouting report, he's an excellent route runner, separator, all of that underneath, great in tight spaces. Look at these numbers deep down the field, 20-plus air yards here, third best deep receiving grade in football, most catches, most yards, most touchdowns. All of a sudden, the Bucs have gone, wait a minute, you're faster than we thought you were. Let's sling it downfield, and of course, Baker Mayfield's in favor of that all the time. Trevor, that 8 receptions, 8 deep catches, okay, in 5 games. Let me tell you something. The last 2 years at Ohio State combined, he had 8 deep catches. He's got as many in 5 games with the Buccaneers as he did his last 2 years at Ohio State. And they're playing, they're in the playoff and everything. They're playing, 30 games or whatever that is, the last 2 years at Ohio State. All of a sudden, Egbuka's a deep threat. He's on the outside. Godwin's back, so he's in the slot a little bit more. But Egbuka being this vertical threat is just not something I had on the board. And the fact that he's been able to do it when the usual vertical threat, Mike Evans, is out now with an injury, again, I don't know that we can understate. We have no idea where the Bucs would be without Emeka Egbuka, and it's the fact that he's been this deep home run threat in multiple different games now. You saw it again last week against Seattle. That's allowed Baker Mayfield to continue to make big plays despite the poor pass protection, despite all the injuries at receiver, and not having Bucky Irving last week and all the adversity the Bucs have gone through. Egbuka's just far and exceeded any expectation we possibly had for him, and that part right there, I think, is the most unexpected part.
Look, we've said this already so many times over the last 5 weeks. Where would this team be without Emeka Egbuka? Right, with Evans happening to get hurt, Chris Godwin very clearly needs a ramp up period. Where would this team be? Yeah, you talk about wins above average, wins above replacement. If Egbuka's not on this team, let's say they would have gone with a pass rusher or something, whatever, in the first round, the Bucs probably have 2 whole less wins because of just not having this player on their team. He has been unbelievable. He is the offensive rookie of the year, I think, and that's an easy decision for me, even without the Tampa Bay bias in there. I know there's a lot of good rookies that are playing well, but what Egbuka has meant to this team 5 games in has been his performance has been unbelievable. He has taken his game to another level, and a lot like we talked about with Jaden Daniels, where you go, holy cow, this guy was good when he was in college, and he's somehow even better now his first year in the NFL. That is exactly what you describe with Emeka Egbuka. He is everything that we saw with him at Ohio State over the last 2 years, and then some, and elevating his game beyond that. So I think it's a really great thing that you call out there. For the 49ers, you ready for this one, Dalton? Get your pen and paper out. I'm going to give you some Christian McCaffrey stats.
Oh, he's got a lot of them. He always has a lot of them.
When it comes to Christian McCaffrey in the receiving game, which means a lot because the Buccaneers are 31st in the NFL so far, 5 weeks through the season, at covering running backs out of the backfield. They have a 42.7 overall coverage grade when covering running backs out of the backfield as receivers. Although it was better last week, they had a 72.6 grade versus Seattle. Christian McCaffrey, amongst running backs when it comes to production as a receiver. Okay, so this is just against running backs. 85.9 receiving grades, first. Targets, 49, first. 39 receptions, first. 387 receiving yards, first. 18 receptions for a first down, first. 13 missed tackles forced on receptions, first. This guy is the most dynamic receiving back in the NFL, and quite frankly, it's not even close. When you look at the 18 first down receptions that Christian McCaffrey has, the next closest to him has 9. You know who that is? Bucky Irving. right behind. Bucky Irving's not playing in this Bucks game. So if you take Bucky Irving out of the equation at all, he is blowing every other running back out of the water when it comes to receiving production. Now, the reason why that's an issue for the Bucks is, like I said, the coverage there. And I think it's something that needs to be pointed out is, yes, Savasier Dennis has struggled in this area, the linebacker for the Buccaneers. He has a 28.2 coverage grade so far this season. A lot of the damage there has been done from running backs out of the backfield and him not being able to contain them. But Levante David as well is struggling. David has a 39.7 coverage grade. Now, that's just overall. That's not just against running backs, but that's overall. Levante David's 35 years old at this point. Last year, his 56.9 coverage grade overall was the lowest single season coverage grade of his career. So this year it is even lower. So the age, it feels like, is really catching up to him when it comes to being that great coverage defender. I mean, he had years where he had an 87.4 coverage grade, 85.6 coverage grade, 91.9, 83.1, 87.9. He had plenty of years where he was in the 70s as well. Levante David has long been one of the better cover linebackers and just straight up linebackers in the NFL for the better part of the last decade and a half. But this year he's really struggling. And Mac Jones, we talked about, how good he was last week. Actually, is he still starting? I don't even know. Is Brock Purdy starting?
I'm not sure if that's been determined yet. That might be a day-to-day type thing.
It's Wednesday, so I wasn't sure if it was like a yeah, Brock's starting this week 100%. But either way, we know kind of what Brock Purdy is, and it's sort of the same thing that Mac Jones is. These guys are just going to operate very confidently, and they're not afraid to take the open receivers. And a lot of time this season, Christian McCaffrey has been that open receiver. Tampa's really struggled in that area. To me, amongst all the other injuries that the 49ers have had so far this season, that is the factor that has been the most constant that they could pick on the Buccaneers with. So, if they can remain consistent in that regard and continue to march the football down the field, sustain those longer drives, it's less time for Baker Mayfield to be explosive. I do have the Bucs still winning this game. I think they have the better momentum. I think they're certainly more healthy even amongst their injuries that they are dealing with. I do think this is a very close game, though. Would not be surprised if the 49ers won this one, but I will say Tampa wins this one 24-20.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I like the Bucs at home in this game. I think whether it is Purdy or Mac Jones, Kyle Shanahan just finds a way to stay in these games and win more than he doesn't. I've got the Bucs 27-24. Some other fun numbers there on McCaffrey. This is among all players, Trev. I'm gonna add receivers and tight ends and everything into this. The only two guys with more targets than Christian McCaffrey in the whole league are Puka Nacua and Chris Olave. The only two guys with more catches are Puka Nacua and apparently Jake Ferguson, who's just catching everything for Dallas right now. I mean, it is just – I still wonder with McCaffrey. He's 29 right now. If he's got maybe another, say, 2 years in him after this at running back, and if he wanted to keep playing into his 30s, if he would just switch to receiver full-time. If he would just be somebody's slot receiver for another 5 years into his 30s and still be that good. Because he's one, I mean, straight up at any position, he's one of the best route runners in football, right? I mean, I really wonder if he wanted to play deep into his 30s. I wonder if there's a team, or I wonder if somebody would just sign him and go, you know what, you want to play receiver? If he would be willing to do that, because he's every bit capable of it, absolutely. That would be really something I think really fun to watch down the line at some point. But you're right, that's the biggest mismatch that could go in the Niners' favor here. But I think this time between two teams that have gotten through a ton of adversity with injuries and all of that, I think Baker Mayfield once again has another solid game. And I think with Tristan Wirfs back, the offensive line is starting to round into form again.
Lions and the Chiefs, that's Sunday Night Football this upcoming week. Fantastic matchup. The Chiefs still need to have their foot on the gas pedal, right? It's like, okay, well, 2 weeks ago, all right, the Chiefs are back. Nobody's going to beat the Chiefs. They're never going to lose again. And then they face the Jags on Monday Night Football, and look at that. They drop another game. Lions, they're the hottest team in the NFL right now. I think if you were looking at a lot of people's power rankings, mine included, I didn't do them for NFLSC this week because we did a mock draft, but the Lions would be number one on my power rankings because of how well they're playing on both sides of the ball. They are really feeling it. This one's in Kansas City, though. How do we feel about this one? What do you want to start with this preview?
Well, I think the Lions, look, they have an identity, right? And you've talked about it with some other teams. I'm going to go here with it. It's good. It's great to have an identity.
What's the identity? Oh, Amon-Ra St. Brown is good. Oh, Sam Laporte is good. Oh, the running backs are good. Jared Goff's playing well.
Their identity is just
the offensive line's playing well.
Just draft a bunch of good players and you'll be good. That's right. I think Jason Lights really started something down there in Tampa where you just draft good players and being good is your identity. Wish I had that. Anyway, look, I think when it comes down to the Lions, what do you think about offensive line running the football, being physically dominant first and foremost, and then allowing Jared Goff to create off the play action? So you've got a Lions offensive line that's third in the league in run blocking grade and second in impact run block percentage, those positively graded blocks, apparently behind the Carolina Panthers, which we've discovered today, which is really something. But either way, the Lions, even with their shuffling and new additions on the inside, Tate Ratledge, Christian Mahogany, Graham Glasgow moving over to center, they're still really darn good. Penei Sewell's the highest graded offensive player in the entire league at any position, which is just crazy, a 96 run blocking grade. They still want to get after it and control the pace of the game. And I think the big problem the Chiefs are having on defense right now is this defensive line not living up to the standard that they usually do, right? 31st. Second to last in run defense grade for their defensive line, and the lowest percentage of positive grades in run defense, their defensive line, of any team in the league right now. Chris Jones and George Karlaftis and these guys up front, they have to start figuring it out in run defense. The pass rush has been getting better. They have Karlaftis. He's got a ton of pressures. Jones is always good as a pass rusher, but they need to figure out against this team how to rely so much. And they got a great group of linebackers, right? Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, Leo Chenal. Those guys prevent explosive plays more often than not from happening. But this defensive line needs to play better in this game, because if the Lions just if they can lean into that identity and they can make Jared Goff the complementary piece instead of having to carry them against one of the best secondaries in football, it's a real problem. I mean, they talk about it all the time. The run game travels, that physicality travels. If the Lions offensive line dominates like they have been the last 4 weeks, they can go into Kansas City and get a win.
Yeah, this is huge. I am glad that this is the Sunday Night Football game, because this is a massive game. I'm trying to look, what's the Chiefs' schedule after this, because they're 2-3. If the Chiefs were to drop to 2-4, they've got the Raiders, the Commanders, and then at Buffalo before the bye week. And then it's Denver, Indy, Dallas, Houston, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. So they've certainly got an ability to bounce back after the bye week with a softer schedule. But 2-4 with then losses to the Chargers, the Eagles, the Jags, and the Lions. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much, they've got to kick it into high gear after that if they want to get the playoff seed that they're hoping that they could get. I mean, if they start 2-4, I don't even know if they're going to be able to get the 1 seed at that point. So this game is huge in a lot of ways. Now, for the Chiefs specifically, I mentioned they didn't win the game last week, but I do still think that we're seeing this offense click and become a little bit more explosive, certainly as they're getting their guys back and healthy. Xavier Worthy against the Jags had a 63.6 receiving grade, but Tyquan Thornton had a 74.8 receiving grade. Hollywood Brown had a 75.7. Brashard Smith had a backfield. I think he had an 87.5. He's not listed here, but I'm just, from me looking that up, he was a major factor as well. They are willing, and Mahomes is willing to be a lot more explosive into the pass game. I think they realize that they're just not going to be as explosive as they want to be in the run game, and they're just going to lean more towards the passing game, especially when they get their speedsters healthy, which they are right now. I think that Xavier Worthy had a tougher game than he has in the past because of Travis Hunter. Going back to our preview of the Jags and me talking about how good Travis Hunter was last week, Travis Hunter was the Xavier Worthy neutralizer for Jacksonville. I don't think that the Detroit Lions have a player like that on their roster at the cornerback position that is healthy. Terron Arnold is hurt, Ennis Rakestraw is hurt, DJ Reed is hurt. They're playing hurt at the cornerback position. And so I think this is going to be a shootout. Tough for me to bet against the Lions right now, so I'm not going to do it. But I do think that this game is high scoring. You see that over-under, 52.5. That is a high scoring number that you are going to see there from Vegas. I have the Lions winning this one 31-27 but I'm just really glad that this is Sunday Night Football, so the whole world gets to watch it.
I have gotten, I believe, 4 out of 5 Chiefs games wrong so far this year, because I just, every time you think the vibe is off, then they get back off the mat. Then you think they have momentum and they go and lose in Jacksonville. And I just, it's a struggle right now with the Chiefs for me to predict this team, because honestly, they have Patrick Mahomes, and at the end of these games, anything can happen. I have the Lions 28-24, and I probably should just apologize ahead of time to Lions fans for taking them at this point. But no, I think the big thing you're going to see is probably a lot of too high looks with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph sitting back there to help these corners. And even if Worthy is not the guy that tees off and has the big numbers in any given game, it is still the threat of him. So I think you're absolutely right about these corners. They're going to have to find guys on the outside who can just not give up huge plays, right? Obviously, the Chiefs like to nickel and dime defenses, but make them do it anyway. And then, I think the big thing for me is just the stars still in that Lions defense in the middle. Jack Campbell's one of the best linebackers in football. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have a great day running the football, and there's always Aiden Hutchinson, man, against Jawan Taylor, against Josh Simmons. That is the big player right there. If you can get him going and into the backfield to take down Mahomes a couple of times, that's really the difference in their defense. Is you have a healthy Aiden Hutchinson, who's a top 5 pass rusher, potential defensive player of the year. I think the Lions find a way to get it done, but they're going to have to be the more physical team in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Desert Sky in the chat mentioned this. Old Kelsey's not going to be winning a matchup against Anzalone, who is excellent right now in coverage. When you look at Anzalone's numbers in coverage, he has a 73.1 coverage grade on the team. I mean, he has only allowed 42 yards total on the season. Jack Campbell, 67.5 coverage grade. He's given up more yards in coverage, but this is still a really good linebacking unit when it comes to matching up against Travis Kelce. There's not a lot of teams, that have the linebackers to match up against Travis Kelce. Sometimes these teams have to say, okay, well, our nickel defender's going to have to go up against him. A safety's going to have to come down against him. The Detroit Lions actually have the linebackers to be able to do it. So I think that's a major chess match part of this matchup as well, is the Lions having that capability. So we're both going with the Lions here, but this should be an excellent game to watch. We got a Monday Night Football doubleheader as well. At 7:15 p.m. Eastern, the Buffalo Bills travel to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Where are we starting here? You want to talk about the Bills or the Falcons for this one?
I'm going to take the Bills offense, and I think you saw with Dalton Kincaid being the big receiver last week against the Patriots, even though they lost. I think that's really been a theme for this Bills offense this season. It's just how good their tight ends have been, especially when multiple of them are out there. You've got Dalton Kincaid, you've got Dawson Knox, you've got Jackson Hawes, who's an excellent blocker as a rookie, and you just look all around at this group. They're 8th in receiving grade, they're 1st in yards, they're 1st in combined first downs and touchdowns, and they're also 1st in run blocking grade. So the number of different options that Joe Brady has, despite having a pretty mediocre wide receiving core, because he has this group of tight ends and all 3 of them can do some different things out there, it really adds the flexibility to their offense, both in the running and passing game. The receiving part I find interesting in this game, especially for Dalton Kincaid, because the Falcons have allowed the fewest catches and yards to tight ends in the NFL this season through 5 weeks. So I think, when you look at that matchup and the Falcons' answers, especially over the middle, when you talk about those safeties, Jesse Bates, Xavier Watts on the back end, who's going to have eyes on Dalton Kincaid in the passing game? Occasionally, Jackson Hawes has been getting involved as well. And then when you talk about up front in run defense and matching up with that Falcons defensive line that's deeper than it was last year, having multiple of those tight ends on the field really helps the Bills in the run game as well. So I expect a lot more of these multiple tight end sets, 12 and even 13 personnel, 6 offensive linemen out there sometimes. I think the Bills are going to stick to that approach on offense because it's been working for them so far.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Falcons on their side of things, certainly it's been up and down, just because I think the team as a whole has been pretty up and down. They struggled with some field goal issues and just some unreliability there, which has come back to bite them pretty hard. So you obviously have to get those things fixed first and foremost. Their offensive line has not been the same as it was in years past, and I think that's been tougher for them to want to lean on that, and they haven't been effective up front as they have been, especially even considered what they were last year. Now, in run defense, I think this is going to be an interesting game of who could run the ball better, right? We saw how tough it was for Buffalo to move the ball at a consistent rate outside of giving the ball to James Cook, which they had been able to do basically at will for 3 weeks prior to that. They struggled to do so against the Patriots, and then their offense all of a sudden was like, okay, well, where's the answers outside of being able to be balanced and run the football whenever we wanted to? So the Falcons, 18th in run defense themselves, 14th in EPA per rush allowed, and so that's something to monitor. But I also think on the other side, being able to get Bijan Robinson as the focal point of this game is going to be huge for the Falcons. They need to get back to their bread and butter. That is going to be how they win football games. I know that Michael Penix has that flamethrower of an arm. He can push it deep downfield. He's got some decent receivers to be able to do it. Certainly Drake London and Kyle Pitts on occasion, and Darnell Mooney when he's healthy. Like, he has the ability to push the ball down the field, but it's always going to be, I think, it's a compliment to what Bijan Robinson can do out of the backfield. And so they've got to sort of get back to the identity that they had last year, being true ass kickers up front. Let's see if they can move this Bills defensive line a little bit, slow down the game some. And I think really that's the recipe for the Falcons to win this game, is getting Bijan Robinson more involved. I do think the Bills bounce back. I'll take the Bills here, 28-24. I just think that they're that type of team that's going to be able to have that bounce back type of game here. And I also think that Dalton Kincaid and how good he has been this year matching up against the Falcons linebacker level defenders, I think is something that's going to be worth watching. And I just wonder, do the Falcons have the middle of the field defenders to be able to stop him? And I guess not just middle of the field defenders, because Kincaid can line up anywhere. He can line up on the outside, he can line up in the slot, he can line up in line. Do they have the diversity of coverage players to be able to match up with him the way that they need to here in this game?
I think this is a tougher game for Buffalo than a lot of people might think. I know going down to Atlanta, they're coming off a bye week, and they're trying to figure themselves out a little bit on both sides of the ball. But Trev, you know me, I worry about this Bills defense. I just don't think it's a great unit. They've got injuries on the outside at corner. They're 28th in run defense grade. They're 25th in coverage grade. The pass rush has been good with Rousseau and Bosa and Epinesa, but other than that, if you give your quarterback time in the pocket and you can run the football well, you can really get on this Bills defense pretty quick. And I think Drake London, too, could be in line for a big game on the outside. I don't think the Bills have many answers for him out there. It's going to come down to Penix and making a few big throws, especially under pressure in those obvious passing situations. But I think the Falcons could get comfortable running the football if they can get back into their play-action game and really get the formula working, because the two games they've won, that's what they've done. They've leaned on Bijan and asked Penix to do enough in the passing game. I'm going to take him to do it here at home. I'm going to take the Falcons 28-27. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. You might get a shootout here between Penix and Allen, but at the end of the day, I worry about this Bills back seven, man. I've been worried about it since the preseason. I think it's going to decide their fate of going to and winning a Super Bowl or not. And so far this season, outside of really of the Jet game, they don't look particularly good. They don't look a whole lot better than last year on the back end of their defense. Yeah,
their secondary has to get better. There is no question about it. I'm kind of predicting a little bit of a bounce back here, but if we don't see it, then we start having high-level discussions about where the Bills could be in terms of what their ceiling is based on the consistency of what they're going to be throughout the playoffs. Because if you're struggling on the back seven, like we saw last year with them, and a part of why they had their exit, it's going to be an issue. And the Falcons are a team that has the ability to push it on you. 49.5 is the over-under on this one, so Vegas obviously expects it to be a fun, high-scoring game. So you're going Falcons, I'm going Bills, and a bounce back there. The second Monday night, the second of the Monday night doubleheader, I should say, is the Chicago Bears traveling to Washington to take on Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. You want to talk about the Bears or the Commanders here for this one?
We get another Hail Mary in this game? Is that what we're doing here? Back at the scene of the crime, man. This is where it all turned for both of these teams.
I hope so, because that's where me and my buddies hit the biggest 6-leg parlay we've ever had. I think I've told you this, is that I've got a group of 6 of us, and every single week we each just pick a random NFL bet, and we pool it all together. We don't talk to each other about it. We don't influence each other. It's just like, I think this is going to happen. It goes, okay, all right, here it is. And the odds were stupid, whatever it was when we had it. And the last play that we needed for that parlay to hit was the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary, because we had I think we just had like Commanders money line in that game, whatever it was. And so I'll never forget that for as long as I live, the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary, making that happen.
Oh no, what a play that was. I mean, for sure, absolutely. But I think, the Commanders, we talk a lot about them running the football and their success and how much that correlates to them winning ball games, right? And we know on defense, they've struggled in coverage, but I think a big factor in their success this year has been Bobby Wagner and their run defense up front. They've actually been outstanding. They are second in the NFL in run defense grade right now, Trevor. Second most run stops, 10th in yards per carry allowed. They've been outstanding up front. So for as much as they've struggled, Marshawn Lattimore and those guys at corner, they've been giving up points and yards on the outside. They've been really darn good in run defense, man. Bobby Wagner's got the highest run defense grade in the NFL among all linebackers. So you look at what they've been doing, and then you look at, yes, the Bears, they want to run the ball. They rebuilt the offensive line. Naturally, Ben Johnson wants to run the ball, but they have the fourth fewest yards per carry on design runs in the NFL. Can the Bears get DeAndre Swift going at all in this run game, or is it going to be a one-dimensional game for them again? Now, will they have success throwing the ball in this game with Rome Odunze, with DJ Moore, those guys on the outside? They should, considering the Commanders' coverage unit. I think Caleb Williams could have a lot of success in this game, but if the Bears are one-dimensional, can they win this football game? That's the real question for me. If they can't run the ball, if they have no balance, and Caleb just has to drop back and throw it 45, 50 times, can they do it like that? Can they outduel Jaden Daniels just throw for throw, on top of the fact that they still have to stop Washington's run game? Because if the Bears are being kept off the field by the run game, and Bill Krosky-Merritt running hot right now, I think, is he the highest graded running back in football, did I see right now?
He's one of them. I could look that up
because I know
he's got to be one of them.
Because I know there's a bunch of draft nicks right now that are going to celebrate the hell out of that if he is. But I mean, you just talk about the Commanders' ability to be two-dimensional and the potential for the Bears in this game to not really be able to run the football if they didn't figure something out over the bye week. That could be a real problem for them. So I think Caleb Williams can have success, but it would be nice to have some balance.
He is the highest graded running back in the NFL through 5 weeks. He has a 90.1 rushing grade. Next is Kenneth Walker with an 83.7. And so he is the highest rushing grade by a lot.
You draft scouts are just running laps right now on that one. I already know you are. It's what you do. You got to take every win every week, man.
I'm looking forward to seeing who Jaden Daniels is this week, specifically over the middle of the field, because it was an area where he was very confident passing the ball last season. He had, I think it was a 78.7 passing grade over the intermediate middle of the field last year. Really high time to throw. So to me, seeing that passing grade and also that low time to throw, I should say, seeing both of those things combined tells me how confident of a passer he was throwing it over the middle of the field. This year, he's even better. 90.7 passing grade with a very similar low time to throw. He has the third best passing grade in the NFL when targeting the intermediate middle of the field. So that's 10 to 19 yards down the field. It's where, man, if you can get good at attacking this area, you put such a stress on the defense. You force the safeties to look over the middle of the field constantly. You force the linebackers to not creep into the flats and help on the outside the numbers. It's tough sledding when you are giving up a lot of yards over the intermediate middle of the field. It's a defeating thing in coverage. Chicago Bears haven't been super great at the linebacker level when it comes to coverage. TJ Edwards reportedly going to come back, but from a hamstring injury, and he was even struggling a little bit when he was out there covering over the middle of the field. Tremaine Edmonds has struggled himself. Noah Sewell has struggled mightily when covering in that area of the field when he has been out there with TJ Edwards when he was hurt. So I'm looking at that area specifically, along with, of course, everything else. Like Bill Krosky-Merritt still playing well. Obviously the diversity of the receivers that Jaden Daniels has to throw to, Deebo Samuel. I can't remember what's Terry McLaurin's status for this game.
I was just going to look at that right now.
I don't even remember if he was like leaning towards playing in this game. But obviously the Commanders looked good without him last week. And so to me, it only comes down to how confident Jaden is as a passer, and obviously if they're able to run the football really well. I talked about this last year when the Commanders were going off. Everybody's freaking out about Jaden Daniels, everything like that. And obviously he's a big reason why, but the Commanders were a good rushing football team last year. They were a lot more balanced than people, I think, were giving them credit for. So now we're sort of having that conversation again with this team, is when they run the ball really well and when Jaden hits over the middle and when he's a factor in that run game, this Commanders team is just really difficult to stop. Does Chicago have the players to be able to defend Jaden Daniels the way that they need to on some of those super confident throws that he has over the middle of the field. I think that is the X factor part of this game. I think the Commanders and Jaden Daniels win it. I think it's a close game. I'm going to say Commanders 27, Bears 24.
I'm with you. I think you'll see a good amount of points. I have Commanders 30 and Bears 23. I just think Jaden Daniels came back last week, and he was in such command of this offense, even without Terry McLaurin. Right now, Noah Brown is practicing today. Terry McLaurin is not. The other story to keep an eye on, too, Dan Quinn says Sam Cosmi, the right guard recovering from the knee injury, is getting a full week of practice in. Not sure if he's going to play Monday, but what a boost to their offensive line that would be on that right side also. You get a guy like that back in there. He's going to be back in the next couple weeks. It's just a question of whether it's going to be against the Bears or not, but you get Sam Cosmi back in there, and then you've got the full picture now on this offensive line. That's going to be a big boost as well. I've got the Commanders too, though. I think a high-scoring game, their ability to run the football. The only thing I'll say for Jaden Daniels in that middle of the field, watch out, because Kevin Byard's always sneaking around in there somewhere. But the fact that they went into L.A. against that Charger defense without Terry McLaurin and found a way to put up 27 points and really dominate the last three quarters of that game, that's big-time stuff. I think Daniels makes the difference. In the run game, I think Krosky Merritt makes a big difference in this game as well. Give me the Commanders in a high-scoring one.
Good shout out for Kevin Byard, who has had some really big moments for them already this season, and he is playing some good ball. He could definitely be an added bonus to that Bears secondary when it comes to defending those middle of the field throws. So we will see exciting matchups throughout the week. Appreciate everybody rocking with us as we previewed all of the games that we have coming up in week 6. If you guys need a PFF Plus subscription to see all of these numbers for yourself, PFF NFL Show 25. That's how you get 25% off of that PFF subscription. Subscribe.pff.com is how you can get one of those. If you are interested in sponsoring the show or anything that we do here at PFF, sales@pff.com. We would love to hear from you. Have a little chat. Dalton, it's your weekend. How you celebrate?
I don't know yet. Haven't really thought about it yet. And honestly, college football is starting on Friday this week. USF and North Texas, big game in the American. So that'll be a fun one. The old Tampa school down there, USF. That's going to be a fun one. But I haven't figured that out yet. I was just getting through this show. I'm living about 5 minutes at a time right now because I previewed 13 games yesterday and 15 today. So we're just going to try to figure out how to live life again somehow, some way. I don't know yet.
Well, however you enjoy it, my friend. Everybody out there who is watching and listening, we appreciate you. You guys enjoy the weekend of football as well. Make sure you follow the college show as well, the PFF College Football channel, where Dalton and Max previewed 13 of the biggest games this weekend because they're psychos, and they love it a lot. So if you like college football at all whatsoever, go check that out. Make sure you're subscribing to that show. Make sure you're subscribing to this show as well. And we will see you to recap everything that we see this weekend on Monday. See you guys then.